What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of 200-400 cash game action between Doug Polk and Daniel Negreanu. Doug picked up a small 27K win on Friday to bring his total winnings on the challenge to $629,882. Today is session number 29, and we still have around 8,500 hands to play in this 25,000 hand challenge. My name is Mike Brady. I'm Upswing Poker's VP, and I'll be calling the action for you today alongside Cash Game streamer and 500NL Zoom regular Ryan Risk, aka Poker with Risk. Welcome back to the stream, Ryan.
Thanks for having me again. Looking forward to it.
And we timed this perfectly today as we see Doug sitting right as we finish our intro. So let's get into it. Over on Twitch, we are going to start a prediction for you guys. So if you want to wager some channel points on who's going to win today's session, you can. I am starting it right now.
I saw some kind words from Doug about Daniel's play as of late. The saying that Daniel's like really put in some effort to make his game a lot better, and he's not sure his win rate is as high as he would have expected it to be at this point.
Yeah, perhaps. I never know how much he's
Trolling?
I don't want to say trolling, though that's not inaccurate. It's more because there's no doubt Daniel's playing better, and Doug thinks that. No doubt about that.
For sure.
It's more so, is Doug saying that 100% in earnest, or is there some angle he's trying to play with, putting that stuff out there? Because we know he was kind of playing some angles early in the challenge when it came to Twitter, more on the other side, kind of joking about Daniel being bad and stuff like that. So it's just hard to say. That said, there's no doubt Daniel's gotten a lot better, and Doug's win rate has decreased from the beginning. The question is just how significantly. What do you think for today? How do you think it's going to go down?
I'm just feeling a D-Negs big losing session for some reason. I don't know. I'm just feeling like a blow up. I think he's due for one. So a big win for Doug, we'll say.
All right. Well, for all the Doug fans and all the people wagering their incredibly valuable Twitch channel points on Doug, I'm sure you speak for them as well. Off the bat, we see a few 3-bets getting folds. Nothing too exciting yet. Have you caught any of the streams since you've been back, or since you were last on?
Yeah, I've watched a bit. I saw like Mike McDonald was on the other day, and I saw some of Gazzy's. Gazzy's always good to watch he's just a funny guy, right? So
he's so funny, yeah. For all the Gazzy fans out there, by the way, Gazzy will be back on Wednesday. Should be good.
He makes your job easy because he just keeps the fans entertained, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I talk a lot less when Gazzy's the commentator, which
I feel like
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I feel like many people would say the same thing when sharing the spotlight with Gazzy, that they talk a lot less.
Yeah, it's good shit. He's definitely someone that I've wanted to pair other people with, but I just haven't. Other than Jamie, he's done it with Jamie once or twice, but I would like to get Fee in there with him. Speaking of, by the way, guys, for those of you here early, you get in on a little secret as we see a 3-bet pot on the right. The plan for today is for Ryan Fee to tag in for me at some point. However, the plan was initially 4 p.m. Fee has a little bit of a weird sleeping schedule right now. He texted me at 10:17 in the morning today and said, my sleeping schedule is fucked. I think I'll probably wake up at 6. So there's a good chance he doesn't actually tag in, and we kind of end up running out the clock without him. But if he does somehow manage to wake up before 4 p.m., he will likely tag in for me. So we might have a double Ryan stream for you in a bit, or not. Might be me and Ryan for the rest of it. Either way, we're going to have some good action for you.
The poker player and the weird sleep schedule, eh? Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, weird stuff. It's not common at all.
Interesting. Daniel 3-bet and delayed on a board you just expect a lot of betting on, and took the big size, and now this river obviously is, it's pretty good for both ranges. Both ranges are going to make some, Daniel's still going to have the sets and 2 pairs that can slow play flop, and then obviously Doug improves to a bunch of flushes. So yeah, kind of interesting to see a check. I mean, like, you would expect to see a lot of checks here from Daniel, obviously.
I feel like we could see a shove from Doug too, with how many flushes he might have in his range here compared to Daniel.
Yep. And then depending on what his pre-flop defending range is, like, yeah.
And there it is.
Like some bare clubs here to bluff with as well. And yeah.
Right. Nice one for Doug there. Drags that 18K pot.
Obviously, the ace being a club is significantly better for Doug, just because a lot of Daniel's flushes will contain that card. So that's why Doug gets the leverage of really big bet size. Obviously, the all-in size is versus the check, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good stuff. 3-bet pot now. Doug on the right.
Starts with a small bet. It's pretty typical for these like queen low lows. Pretty good for the 3-better.
Shout out to Marty Mathis in the chat. Called that all in for Doug as well. Nice prediction from him.
Would expect Doug to check this turn a fair amount.
Yeah, kind of not exactly the same, but kind of the same concepts at play from the last hand, right? Where the in position player who called the 3-bet's going to have more suited hands.
Yeah, especially if Doug's taking the small size on flop, which he did. He's saying he's betting a lot, so therefore, when the draw is complete, just as a product of a wide range versus a more narrow range, Daniel will just have a few more of the strong hands here. So very interesting river. Obviously, check. You could see some very small sizes here from Doug sometimes, like a block, like this, and then yeah, obviously some bigger sizes as well.
So yeah, there's the small size you just called.
So
going
now,
for about a third here.
Yeah, he's getting obviously D-Nags gets a good price on a call there, and he gets to decide which somewhat showdown value hands to turn into bluffs there. Decides to fold that time. Hey Ryan, I saw you battling. Yeah, I was battling Jake, who's like he's kind of a semi-retired 500 Zoom reg. It was one of the best cash game regs for a while. And he was streaming, so I just hopped in to get some heads up game, just to warm up for tonight. And I won the $200 off him, so I guess that means I'm better, right? 50 hand sample, I won $200. So
hey, if you ask the DNegs fans who continue to bring up that first live session, absolutely that proves it. If you win in a 50 to 200 hand sample, you're better than the person you played at whatever you played.
Yeah, the live regs, right? Who play like you play like 1,000 hands a year sometimes, and not much of a sample, right?
Yeah, this in 2020, a lot of them might have played about 2,000 hands or about 1,000 hands. Pretty crazy. Tim Coughlin with some kind words about Upswing Poker's introductory product on Twitch. Brady, I took the 45-minute $7 post-flop game plan course and won a friend's weekend home cash game using a lot of the tips. Thanks, Upswing. You are very welcome. For those who want a very simple way to get better at poker and are kind of just getting started, kind of new to the strategy in general, go check out the $7 post-flop game plan on Upswing Poker. Perfect introductory course for people just getting started in poker, just starting to think about strategy for the first time.
Now we see a chop pot on the left, and I see betting. Now we're going to the turn on the right. And also with those introductory things, someone who's not affiliated with Upswing, for all those people who you think you kind of understand poker, but you don't know where to start, that tool is really good because there's a lot of things you think you know until you take a little simple tool like that. And just for not much of an investment, you get a pretty big eye-opening experience. So definitely worth the small investment for all you casual players out there.
Good stuff. Appreciate the kind words, Ryan. Ryan's taken a course or two of ours over at Upswing, so he knows we bring our A game when it comes to our content.
Yeah, only heads up course I've ever taken. So we see C-bet, and then a good turn for Daniel. Obviously, he's going to have the ace queen that Doug will basically never has unless he's rolling ace queen. Probably not. So probably full all combos of the nuts for Daniel and none for Doug. So Daniel can do this, use some big bet sizes, and Doug folds. How was the commentary with Mike McDonald? He hasn't played much heads up poker in his day, but he's just good at all forms of poker, right?
Yeah, he just knows poker pretty inside and out. And as I've said time and time again on this stream, the people who are commentating, even if we've never played 200, 400 heads up or whatever, we all know what we don't know, so we're not going to steer you guys wrong. We're not going to say anything blatantly wrong, at least not on purpose. So that was kind of the same with Mike. He had a lot of great insights to share, a lot of fun stories, honestly a good amount of strategic insights as well. And he knew what he didn't know, so everything he said was just gold, pretty much, and gold or entertainment. Had a lot of entertainment value, so it was great. For those of you who didn't catch the Friday stream with Mike McDonald, pretty swingy session despite the results. I don't know if for those of you who saw the result but not the session, as we see Doug with a nice pickoff on the right with King High.
Daniel gave up.
Oh, he gave up?
I think so. Unless that was
No, it was a river bet.
Oh, okay.
Check down river bet. Yeah, I understand what you were thinking because that hand you'd expect Daniel to maybe put in a bet earlier, but you did
I was a
not.
little confused.
Yeah, what was I just saying? Yeah, so for those of you who did not catch the Friday stream, it was a super swingy session, very entertaining. And then Mike McDonald took it to a new level. So definitely check that one out if you missed it. On the left, we have Daniel going for about a 1.4x pot over bet or so.
This is a good spot for Daniel to go pretty thin when it goes bet check. Yeah, like this is not that thin, obviously, queen 9, but could basically overbet any queen there on that drive or run out. Something for you begin, like as Mike was talking about, if you're like trying to learn a few things in poker, there's some spots you can use a lot bigger sizes than you might realize. And as you saw there, queen 9 might not be the most natural overbet for a lot of people who don't play much heads up, but pretty standard for this spot, I would think.
Hey, Ryan. Doug on the right.
Yeah, so we see a 3-bet pot and a single, and we see this is a low board. You won't see actually Doug c-bet this board as often as a lot of ace-high textures. These lower ones, I don't know if there is as applicable in heads up, but I know in like 6 max, yeah. So we do see a check here. Just becomes pretty easy for DNegs to defend appropriately versus small size on these low textures, and then potentially DNegs just has a nut advantage as well.
Makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, he does use kind of a big-ish size. Doesn't feel that big, but not the 1/3, just like the 40% size, which is a bit bigger, but showing you that he's not saying he's betting all of his cards in this spot. He's not betting range. He's being a bit more selective, which obviously makes sense. And would expect him to be somewhat polar on turn though, so bigger size and check. And we do see the 2/3 and Doug folds. But yeah, I posted. I saw someone mention in the chat. I posted the worst session of my career today. I was just working with some people on their mental game and stuff, and decided to share mine. What's the
just to be clear? You didn't have your worst session today. You just posted about it today. Gotcha.
And I saw someone comment on it, so I'm just clarifying that wasn't actually today. But I was going to ask you, what's the worst session you've ever had in terms of buy-ins? Not money, just say buy-ins in one session.
Yeah, that's a question for chat too. So chat, drop your answer as well, and maybe with the game type you play, because you get to some impressive numbers depending on what game type you play. I've definitely lost 1,000 blinds in a session. It was a little different in heads up, I mean, you have the big swings, but the matches tend to not last that long unless you kind of get lucky and find someone who's willing to battle. So I don't think I lost more than like 1,000 blinds in a session, and if I have, it's been a handful of times. I mean, when it comes to biggest downswings, I mean, oh man, like like probably, yeah, those are a lot easier to put up a big number. Probably 7,000 blinds or something like that.
Yeah, so the session I posted today was from 2 years ago, and it was minus 35 buy-ins and 4,500 hands. So I don't know if I've heard, so almost 40 buy-ins in one session, 35, and
it's almost not quite, but it's around 7.75 buy-ins per 100 hands you lost. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So it's obviously the crazy. I'd never even been close to that prior to that, and I hope never to be close to that again. But yeah, people talk about downswings and stuff, and that's basically a downswing in one session. So
yeah, no kidding. Let's see what we got here for answers in the chat. 14 buy-ins at NL 100, 33 buy-ins at 500. Curious if anyone has a good live one, like a good 10 buy-ins in live, which is like really difficult to do. I guess if you're playing a game where you buy in for 5 buy-ins or something, that 500 blinds, then it's different. But
yeah,
I don't see any big.
See some 20s and 25s, but yeah, supposedly we see 123 buy-ins at NL 200. I'm sorry, 2NL, but I don't know how much weight I put on that.
I would not put much weight. 138 bets in 08. Just got to call that one out because we have a limit player who decided to get in the mix. Appreciate you tuning in. Hero value.
So this was raise and c-bet on the left, I believe, and must have been a check raise.
Yes, check raise from Daniel on the flop. Yeah, for those of you who do want to see Ryan's sickening graph, I just took a look at it. It is brutal. It almost made me reach a little bit, or retch rather. Go ahead and check out Poker with Risk on Twitter. It's spelled like Ryan's last name, so Riske. Go ahead and check him out on Twitter and check out that disgusting graph. It's near the top. Maybe give him a follow while you're there.
Me and one of my friends, like the guys I study with, we were reviewing some of the hands today. So it's like 2 years old, and obviously I play different now than I did 2 years ago. But it was a pretty sick session just looking at some of the beats, which is going to happen when you lose 35 binds. You see another 3-bet, pretty good board for the defender. So you wouldn't see too much betting here from D-Negs, and when he does bet, you would expect some smaller sizes. So it'd be kind of weird to see a big size here, but could be part of a more complicated strategy. We do see the check. And then Doug gets the bet pretty frequently on this board, can polarize himself now or just stick to this size, which is going to be more common. And not a fun spot as the 3-better, especially if you're not putting enough of these like suited connectors and just like mix of low cards in your range. You do see
on the left a moment ago, we saw Doug go for the triple check with the flop nuts. Jack 9 on 10-8-7. Board did pair on the river, but unfortunately for Doug, Daniel did not fall into the trap. Doug's going to have to settle for a 4-blind pot with the effective nuts.
How long does it take to win back 35 binds? Depends. You could have the heater session right away after, or it could take you a long time.
Do you remember how long it took you in that instance?
I think actually that ended up, as poker can be, it can be a cruel game. And right after that session, I went on like a 3-month break-even session, and it was like right before my wedding. So it was like just everything, and I have a wedding and a honeymoon, and then I bought a house in October. So it was just like really nice timing by the poker gods. But luckily in October, I came 5th in like a live 1K for like 35K. So that kind of helped offset all of that.
Right. Yeah. Well played.
Yeah.
19K in the middle on the left.
And
I believe this was a check raise on the flop barrel from Daniel. Yes, that is confirmed.
All right. So very not great river for a check raise barrel line. And so when he does bet here, it should be, he's basically repping some sort of boat.
Yeah. Pocket threes. Exactly. Basically.
Yeah. So kind of interesting, like almost would be better than either block or check most of your range here. And he does go with like the half pot, which is really interesting. And yeah, he does have, not a big fan of that river bet from him.
Yeah, I don't really know what that accomplishes because he can check and bluff catch versus some of Doug's missed draws. Not that there's loads of those. He has some missed flush draws. So he can check and kind of pick those off. But by betting, I don't really know what happens that's good for you, right? Like I can't think of a single hand that calls that's worse other than a chop, of course.
Yeah, like you're almost like, that's why a block could make some sense there. You could just try and potentially lose a bit less versus a bigger ace, or control the pot size. But seems like a just really good candidate to check river with when you unblock all the missed draws and have no kicker on river. So feels like almost like a greedy kind of, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to half pot size, which can be a big mistake. If you're ever just betting because you don't know what else to do, you should probably take a few seconds to really think about why you're betting.
Definitely.
We see a small bet from Doug on the left. I think this was checked down, and Doug just takes a small bet and takes it down.
Jeff Compton dropped a question for Doug in the chat. If you guys have any questions for Doug, please drop those in the chat. Maybe put question for Doug : before them, as we see a 3-bet pot on the right. Doug is 3-better. But Jeff's question I will read in a moment. But again, Doug will be joining us for a chat after the session, so get your questions in now. I'll write them down. Doug C-bet gets through. So to get to Jeff's question, I can give you a quick answer, but I'll also let Doug, say what he wants to at the end. Will Doug go into detail of what his strategy was for the match, what worked, what didn't work when the match is completed? We have tentative plans over at Upswing Poker to bring that content to you, as far as how it's going to be done, what course it's going to go into, or if it's going to be a new course or a new mini course, something like that. That's all up in the air. But we will be putting together some content for you guys on Upswing Poker around this match. So you can definitely look forward to that. And I will ask Doug at the end of the session as well, just to sort of let him say as much as he wants to. As you could tell, I'm kind of being protective with exactly what we're doing, but I'll let Doug say what he wants to at the end, though it might be more of what I just said.
Yeah, It's interesting to see. Like once there's no gamesmanship behind anything you have to talk about, it's kind of interesting to see, like just hear what his opinion of the whole session would have been, the whole experience would be.
Yeah, for sure.
As you kind of alluded to, you never know when he's kind of has a bit of gamesmanship behind what he's saying and when he's just saying that. And that's as a poker player, you can never really be 100% honest. See a check raise from Doug, and then similar to the ace-3 spot, not a turn that Doug should bet a ton on. Now that the two pairs kind of, he can obviously check raise some twos on the flop and then improve on this turn. But this sizing makes a lot of sense when he does bet, because for one, if he does have a boat, he doesn't really want to bet big and blow Daniel off the pot, and so his value range is also narrowed a bit. So a small size, now you can bet more queen X, still barrel some equity. And now, obviously, on this river, though, you're mainly going to have big sizes. You can, again, block if you have a random 2 here, but for the most part, it's going to be big bets and checks. He does go for the block, though, so obviously, you can begin inducing here, and then he can still have some thin value bets. But, again, most of the thin value bets on this river are going to be some sort of trips. So wouldn't have been a spot I would have thought to block, so it'd be interesting to see if Daniel calls. We do see the shove.
Goes for the shove, yeah. Doug's going to have to call about 30K to win 53. He folds, though. Nice pot going Daniel's way.
Yeah, very interesting spot to block river on the ace-high flush complete. Doug can obviously do that with some weak flushes as well, and then some hands that want to induce, and then some twos. But he doesn't really have, he's not value betting a queen or an ace on that run out. Doesn't really have many ace to begin with, so.
Shout out to Xavier Bresniak on YouTube for the $5 donation to Doug's channel. Please keep bringing those donations into Doug, guys. He's hurting, needs those. With his donation, he says, "What's DNeg's favorite season? Fall, because more rake is better." Very good. Well worth $5, as everyone else in the chat said.
Someone asked, what is a block bet? And so there's probably a decent amount of people who maybe are unfamiliar with that. Block bet is just kind of and Mike even gave me a little bit of shit the first time I was on for doing this, because it's supposed to refer to when you're out of position, where you use kind of a small, typically around 1/3 size pot bet, to basically block your opponent's ability to use sizes, smallish and even some bigger sizes, because now they have to raise a substantial size against your bet. So you'll do a variety of medium strength to some decent hands. So you usually just end up betting about 33% of the pot. You'll also block in position, but that's the scenario where Mike gave me a bit of crap for. It's just become a term that everyone uses in poker. You can just think of it as betting a small amount, and you're usually going to get the gist of it.
Yeah, betting small amount is the most concise way to describe a block, but that's sort of, not totally encapsulating everything, but Ryan just kind of nailed it with that explanation. So now you know what a block is.
See a pot size bet from Doug on the right, which is pretty cool. On this board, Doug shouldn't have many 2 pairs, but won't have hands like pocket 8, so he kind of struggles to defend against the big bet. And then DNegs can leverage some big bets on some other turns as well. This turn isn't great for DNegs though, so I wouldn't expect huge bets on this turn. And you do see a check. And now you will see a variety of sizes from Doug. He could definitely, the block we just talked about could be in here, and then obviously a bigger bet. And he checks 2 DNegs, and he checks back with the 5. Kind of interesting to see the mergey pot size bet with the 6-5 on that flop.
Yeah, that is interesting. Doug's still floating with the gutter ball, so nice value for Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Once Doug turns the pair, you don't really expect either player to put in any more bets, since they both have a semblance of showdown value. On the left, we have a 3-bet pot. Doug c-betting, getting raised by Daniel. Pretty small raise from Daniel. Expect to see a lot of calls from Doug here. Maybe even some 3-betting.
This is kind of interesting, because the last time I was on, there's a very similar texture to this where Doug took a similar size, and Daniel used a really big raise size. And now this time he's using on basically the same texture as small size. So again, he's allowed to have multiple sizes, more complicated that way. So just interesting. In that scenario where he used the big size, he actually had a stone airball. In this spot, he used a small size and then shoves turn. So maybe I've just picked up on the secret to his strategy, right? The small raises the nuts and the big raises the bluff. Maybe
it's that simple. You should try to get that info to Doug quick.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he'd love that.
Yeah, that's very. I know exactly the words Doug will say if you say that. Yeah. Not how I approach poker or something like that.
I've had that expression said to me a few times, and it's always like interesting to, because obviously I think of poker slightly different than him, and it's cool to hear when people are just like, nope, don't think of it that way, and be like, all right, maybe I'm too narrow minded the way I think of it.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, as long as you're questioning everything, that's what matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Micro Poker Guy says, I like to quote unquote blocker bet in position on the turn in order to check back the river with a medium strength hand. Yep, that is very much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when a flop bet didn't go in, but even when a flop bet went in. We actually have a pretty cool article about small bets written by poker theorist Matt Jonda, who's written some really good books. If you Google small bet sizes poker, you will definitely find the article from Matt Jonda. He talks about that concept of sort of betting small on the turn and getting to check back the river and kind of owning people that way, allowing yourself to realize more equity sometimes. Really, really good article. I recommend you guys check that out. Again, just Google small bet sizes poker and you'll find it. I'll drop it in the chat for you guys too now.
You just have to be careful. And then the flip side of that is when you see other people using the small bet, think of why they're trying to use it so you don't let them get away with that same play. Make their life hell and throw in the check raise, some lower equity check raises, some thinner check raises. You'll see a lot of that in these heads up matches for sure. There's people already suggesting future heads up matches for Doug. Feel like after this he's going to want at least a decent sized break from poker again.
Yes, I tend to agree. I think he might hop in there for a few more informal matches, like, take for example a Bill Perkins wants to play a few hundred hands one day on ACR. That's still going to happen, but yeah. As far as 10,000, 25,000 hand challenges go, I think it's very likely this is going to be Doug's last time in the scuffle. But we'll see. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised.
We thought that before, so every now and then you get the itch.
Very true.
You've like you said, the times we've talked, you've said that yourself. Like you hadn't played much poker for a while, and you've had the itch to get back in every now and then. So
yeah, exactly. Time away from the game is pretty helpful to sort of fall back in love with it, if you will.
Do you find your first session back, you play, like, do you notice difference in your play? You play better or worse? Like, obviously you're gonna be rusty, but like your thinking can be better if you take a bit of a break.
Right. It tends to be my overall critical thinking might be a little better because I'm not like lost in the weeds of, ranges and, all this like very specific stuff that maybe I'm studying on the side. But when it comes to the actual technical stuff that I'm like needing to remember, like what exact hands to 3-bet in XYZ spot, I'm worse, obviously, because I'm just simply not as practiced. I'm too rusty. Yeah, it's kind of, it happens to be in golf too, and other things, as we see Doug check raise the right. I won't do something for a while, and if it's something, and I think this is something a lot of people deal with, I won't do something for a while, and it's something that involves a lot of thinking, like golf or like a specific video game or like poker, and the first few swings of the golf club or whatever tend to be really good because I'm not overthinking, but then I get back into the swing of things, pun not intended, and then I suddenly suck again, like I usually do. So that's kind of how that's for golf specifically. But yeah, that first one, it's nice. It's like all the overthinking has melted away.
Yeah, and the first few, you just like, oh, this is easy. What, like, I got this figured out, right? And then reality comes back, and you're like, not so easy.
Exactly. Brain starts thinking again.
Yeah. I believe this was just single raise, small bet, call. And now, I was going to say pretty good turn for Doug. Sometimes the turns are deceptive, which ones are good and bad. And this like middling overcard that brings more equity in for a lot of Doug's bluffing range is actually really good for him in position. Because Daniel's just not going to float the flop with many nines. So those like middling cards are, especially in heads up where ranges are quite wide, you can't float everything on flop. You're going to, by default, float more high cards. The middling cards that don't connect with the bottom cards are really good bluffing candidates.
4 clubs now on the right in this 3-bet pot. Check on the flop.
So yeah, these, especially on 4 flush, but these mono boards are supposed to be pretty passive in general. So would expect a lot of checking from both people. we do see Doug bet small now versus the double check. This will allow him to bet more hands for value, and he could just use this as his only size. So could be, obviously some bluffs, and then any club he decides to bet can take this size. We see the check call, and this is a spot where after Daniel just check calls turn, Doug could use some really big bets on this river. Especially now that it's a 5 flush. So he can kind of use some overbet size to basically, or pot, similar, just a big size, basically, for one, trying to force Daniel off a chop, and for two, leveraging the fact that Daniel didn't check raise turn, so Doug should have the bigger clubs in his range by the river. On the left, was this check raise on the flop? I'm not sure. It's queen, queen, 6, rainbow, pretty big pot.
On the left, it's 3-bet pot, c-bet. I'm very used to seeing 12K pots. 12K pots generally mean 3-bet pot, c-bet small. That's what I've seen so many of them now. It's very consistent.
Like a cheat sheet of pot sizes now that you just know.
Yeah, it really does help. Like 6, 7K tends to be check raise. We're on a turn with 6, 7K in the middle, tends to be a check raise. How else do you really get that much in there?
So we see a very polarizing bet from Doug versus the check on the turn, which makes sense. He can develop multiple strategies here, but he's basically saying he has a queen or air. So again, probably only shoves and checks on this river. Wouldn't make sense to bet anything other than that. And he does go for the check and loses to, the effective nuts, top trips. So Daniel did lay the trap with the bet small flop check turn with ace queen, which is pretty good combo to use sometimes. It's obviously the best queen, but you're never really going to lose value against a better queen, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So the ace queen just unblocks more bluffs. On the right, 3-bet, and would expect a lot of the small size from Daniel, as you do, the quarter pot c-bet. We see a check back and then an overbet from Doug. And a call. And then, again, pretty good river for a lot of Doug's range. He's obviously, whatever 2 pairs he was repping on the turn are basically still the nuts. And then he also has 5, 6 now in this range, and he does go for another decent-sized overbet.
Very chunky bet here.
Yeah. And now this depends on how... And he does river with the deuce 5 bare gutter.
That is filthy.
That's one you might hear about from D-Negs afterwards.
Yeah, you think he's going to be happy that he drilled a gutter? I don't think so.
Drills the 3 that doesn't complete either flush, so he just gets max value.
Yep.
Those are the worst in Daniel's shoes. When you have a feeling something's up on the turn, and then pretty brick river, and you're still, and you were right. He had very low equity on the turn, but he got there this time.
Shane S. Sorry to interrupt. Ryan, hold that thought. Question for Doug from Shane. Does he golf, and would he be willing to play Daniel for a large sum of money? I guarantee the answer to the second half is no, but I will ask him what his experience with golf is. Why not? We need some off-topic questions for Doug. What were you going to say, Ryan?
Yeah, for some reason I don't feel like Doug's a golfer. Like, just doesn't really fit the vibe to me. I don't know him that well, but just from my limited interactions with him, doesn't really seem like a golfer.
You're going off the live reads, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you might be onto something there.
And there's probably a pretty accurate representation of what D-Negs' response to that 3 on the river may be in the chat. So some foreshadowing.
DeCure from DeCure. Effing 3 on the river, so effing sick. Had the flush draw and the pair. Effing gut shot. This effing lucky guy. I'm just to be clear, I'm not against cursing on the stream. I try to keep it to only 1 or 2 per streams. That had like 4 in it, so I had to blurt those, or not say those ones.
You want them to really hit home when you use them, right? You can't just overuse them here and there.
Exactly.
I also have I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law may be watching this, and she's a very anti-swearer, so I have to keep the points up with her. So I'll limit myself to 1 or 2 as well.
Sounds good. Shout out to Ryan's mother-in-law.
And I keep getting asked if I'm standing. Quick, I think do you have a stand desk as well, Mike?
I do. I'm just not. It's not in standing mode right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I do, and I use it. I try to do it for things like this, where something I enjoy doing that doesn't, that just allows me to do it, not really think about it. So it's a good time.
Right. I saw you say that in chat a couple sessions ago. You say what the way you use your standing desk is do it for stand during tasks you enjoy, which seems like a really good way to do it.
Yeah, like don't do it while you study if you don't really like studying, because then you're just gonna hate both. So
right, yeah, that makes a lot
sit
of
while you
sense.
study, and then when you're playing and having fun, stand for that or whatever you enjoy doing.
3-bet pot on the left. I believe it was a c-bet on the flop from Doug. Now check on the turn. Let me double check that. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was Daniel who bet the flop. So Doug 3-bet and checked twice, called 2 bets from Daniel. Now Daniel's going to have the option to triple barrel all in. See what he decides to do.
It's a not fun spot for a lot of Doug's range, just as a product of the 3 low cards. Daniel's going to have a set advantage, have some straights and 2 pairs that Doug will have maybe less of. And heads up is not as much of a thing, because heads up you obviously still 3-bet a variety of cards. But yeah, typically the low wheel flops are still going to be good for the caller. So this is one of those textures Daniel's been using some big sizes on. We saw him on 853 use a pretty big size. The 9's a bit different because so he does size down a bit on the 9, just because Doug will defend more 9s, so it's easier for him to defend against big bets.
Pretty back and forth session, but for small amounts today so far. Both players have had the lead. No big leads, though. Half a buy-in or so is the biggest lead that we've seen.
There's been no 4-bets yet, right? I don't think so.
I don't think there's been a single 4-bet now. Not even one that got the fold, unless it happened so fast we missed it. But I think we've caught all the hands, so.
See a small bet from D-Negs on the right, and then a check on the turn, and going to see some big bets here from Doug. He does go for the block, so he's more representing some weaker ace-x, a 5 obviously, and the kickers don't matter, so they chop the pot. On the left, we saw c-bet and barrel, I believe, and now the 6 pairs on the river. It's going to kind of help Doug a little bit more in not much, but Doug might have a few more 6x with a heart than D-Negs will, but D-Negs is repping with this size something that basically beats that type of hand. So now Doug just has to pick some bluff catchers. Obviously, he's going to call a bunch of 6x with a heart, and then has to decide what other bluff catchers you think is best in this spot.
Let's see what Dougie decides to do here. Does call.
It's a flush. So pretty decent chance Doug either had ace-x with a heart or trips, and then obviously potential for a weaker flush as well. But usually you'd be really weird to see him call with any of the hands that don't contain a heart or at least a 6.
Starting to see a good amount of people funnel in. Welcome to the stream. For those of you who just got here, just to catch you up really quick, this is session number 29 of the Doug vs. Daniel challenge. Going into this session, about 8,500 hands to play of the 25K total, and Doug had about a 630K lead going into today. Obviously, that has been reduced by a little bit so far.
3-bet and a bit bigger block, the 40%-ish size. Seen D-Negs raise a few times on these jack high textures. This time he does just call, flush complete on the turn, so a lot of, and the deuce of spades, it definitely unblocks the least amount of flushes, so there's gonna be a lot of flush combos out between the two of them. We do see a check. D-Negs doesn't really need to bet that big here with his betting range. He does decide to go for the small size. I think this is pretty good here because it makes Doug's life a lot more difficult to defend against this small size on this turn. Whereas if DNX polarizes himself too much on the turn, it makes it a bit easier for Doug to just, have some easy calls and easy folds. Get to this river, pot's still 1-1, so basically going to see either shoves or checks from DNX. And then obviously Doug is in usually not a fun spot, and we do see the snap fold. Sometimes a very good spot. Sometimes he's trapped and it's a snap call, but a lot of times it's just, you're not in a great spot and you have to decide when you want to call.
That was indeed. Got to have calls in every spot for the most part. Yep. Catalan Florin, last name that is too French for me to pronounce, says, Mike, are there going to be more face-to-face sessions? I believe they will wrap this whole challenge up with a session in person. Not 100% about that. They actually had planned to do one perhaps at the end of the halfway mark. That didn't end up happening, though, for a couple of different reasons. But I do expect them to play a session at the end in person. We'll see, though. It could fall through like it did in the first half.
Yeah. It'd also be kind of interesting if the match is way out of reach or something. Kind of does it have as much of a draw, right? If one of them's up by 1 million at that point, is there that much of a draw to watch them play 100 hands in a match that's already decided? Right,
exactly. As we see Daniel check raise on the left in this 3-bet pot. That was actually one of the contingencies on playing the last 200 hands of the first half of the challenge live. It had to be within 500k. So that's one reason it didn't even trigger.
Right. It's a really big check raise from, I guess not really big in relation to the pot, but
all in from Dougie. Quick call, set versus a good hand as well.
And Doug holds.
Yeah, that's quite a cooler for Daniel. What do you think of Daniel's, as we see Daniel double barreling on the right in a 3-bet pot, another juicy pot happening over there? What do you think of Daniel's check raise size there? I imagine the hand selection is good to check raise with tens. If you're going to check raise with an overpair, that seems to make a lot of sense. But specifically that size, do you have any thoughts on that?
I just think Doug kind of talked about this last time too. So we do see a shove from Daniel on the right. A few big pots now, all of a sudden, just all ins in both. Daniel does take that one down. Yeah, Doug kind of talked about this too, but just when you raise, there's not really one set good raise size. It's just build a strategy around it. So when he takes that big of a size, it just doesn't allow him to bluff as efficiently is the biggest thing, right? You're going to need more equity to back up your bluffs when you're using that big of a size. So it just depends how he wants to split his range. I typically wouldn't raise that big, but again, I don't play heads up. Maybe it's better heads up. Yeah, so maybe a bit on the large size, but could be good if he's just building a strategy around mainly tens and jacks and some higher equity bluffs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those types of tens and nines there with their straight blocking and straight equity.
Yeah,
definitely hands that are happy to get the money in there.
Yeah,
as any overpair would be. By the way, sorry to Catalan. I said that your name looked French to me. Romanian, my mistake. Sorry. Shout out to Romania. Our lead content writer on Upswing is a Romanian grinder, so yeah, a lot of respect for Romania.
This was C-bet, check, and Daniel goes for about a 2/3 size. Half pot on the river, and nice little value bet for the 2-pair. Potential to go bigger, even with 2-pair, with that 2-pair type. But he does go for the half pot, trying to get more calls from Doug.
Pedro with a question for Doug regarding his post-poker retirement. If he's enjoying it, if he's just sitting around eating cake and watching football, we'll definitely ask him. Still collecting questions for Doug, guys, as we will the whole day. So keep getting those in. I'll write them down when we get a good one.
See a pot going Doug's way. Pretty even stacks, and they're both approaching 200 big blinds on the left, so we can see some pretty juicy pots now. This is where you'll see some bigger sizes used from Doug, specifically when he's in position. Daniel employing a similar strategy. I believe he 3-bets smaller out of position as well, and just in general, the idea being you don't want to bloat the pot as much when you're out of position because you're going to be put in a lot of spots. Say that flop we just saw, where it was I believe it was 8-7-6, and Daniel was able to just check raise and get tens in on the flop. Obviously, he ran into a set, but you just can't make that play if you're 200 big blinds deep. You're just gonna if you run into sixes for 200 big blinds, it's a lot worse than when you run into it for 100 big blinds.
Right, no doubt. Oh, Spicy Squiddy bringing up something very important as we have a $4,500 pot on the left. What's the line today on Mike Brady cutting off his sleeves? What do you guys think? We'll run it back if Doug wins if Doug breaks the record for biggest pot of the challenge today and wins it, as we see Daniel get paid on the left, drags 7.2K pot. I will cut off my sleeves so I match Doug in the post-game interview, where he will undoubtedly be wearing a tank top. I believe his tank top frequency in the post-game interviews is 20 to 1 right now. However many times Doug has done the post-game interview, only once was he wearing sleeves. So always a good bet. If you want to bet your friends, maybe give them 10 to 1 that Doug will not be wearing sleeves. It's something that sounds like a really specific prediction, but it's not the long shot like it sounds.
Sounds
good way to hustle your friends.
The tank top bet. See a raise, and we're going to see a lot of small bets, I would assume, from Daniel here on the left. And then on the right, we see a pot size bet from Doug on the ace river. He can obviously do this with any ace. And then potentially, depending on, I guess it is double paired. So yeah, it's mainly just going to be an ace. Any ace is a good ace in this scenario because you have a boat with any ace. I see a check raise on the left that takes it down. And so D-Negs is basically just like, he's going to want a hero call when he doesn't have an ace or a 7 with cards that don't contain, 8s and 9s would be so you wouldn't really want to call him like King 9 here. If you do want a hero call, you'd rather call like King Queen or something like that.
Makes sense. Doug does get paid with the low end of the full house there. Nice pot for him.
See, check back on the left, which you wouldn't expect too much of from D-Negs on King Queen 4. Pretty good board, obviously, for the initial raiser. They're going to have all the big cards that connect with the king and the queen that Doug will just have less of due to 3-betting them pre-flop. So we do see a check back. Very interesting to see him fold this turn. I mean, he obviously can have some hands like 8s and 9s and stuff like that decide to check back and fold. Anyways, we see the four straight river. So obviously you can see some big bets and some blocks from Doug. Both would be appropriate here. Goes check, and Doug takes it down with 2 pair.
Lorcan Savage suggests wearing only the sleeves with the rest of the t-shirt missing. That's actually pretty smart. Then it's like me and Doug are sort of the yin and yang, the sleeves and the sleeveless.
The complete upswing operation together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So 3-bet and a bit bigger bet here on the 7-5-5. Basically, when Doug uses this size, he's kind of, basically saying that D-Negs doesn't have enough 5x for him to worry about using a bit bigger size here, which seems appropriate. D-Negs won't have a ton of 5x. So have obviously some suited 4-5, 5-6 type hands, but outside of that, not a huge concern. And he does check on the turn 9, which will be pretty good for D-Negs to pick up a bunch of equity on this turn. Will obviously sometimes improve with pocket 9s and 6-8. But again, not a ton of combos. So you could still see some check raises here from Doug or some check calls.
Small bet from Daniel here.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss the action? So is this who bet the flop? This is a 3-bet pot. Who bet the flop?
3-bet pot, and Doug went with about like 50% on the flop.
Okay, and then check call turn. Got it.
And pretty dynamic river. The 10-8's kind of irrelevant for D-Negs. So it's mainly going to be, front door flushes and full houses in Daniel's betting range. He can have obviously some 5x as well. But yeah, he's not going to go too thin on this river. You don't see that many small bets, but this would be an interesting spot to have a small bet and a shove. He does go for the shove.
Tank from Doug, probably not good for him.
Few of those spots today for him where a lot of stuff completes on the river and Doug's just in the spot where he's just not as a product of how the ranges get to the river, he's going to have less of these nutted hands, and then it's just a tough spot. If the person in position can apply enough pressure with their bluffs, then it's really difficult to navigate these spots. On the left, they check down 4 straight and 3 flush. So could see some actually big bets in a spot where there's not that many big bets in check down pots typically, but this river would definitely have some. Doug gives up with the 8-6 and loses to the ace high. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, no stab there from Doug. Interesting stuff.
Must have rolled real low.
Seems that way. Or actually, he's a high. Low is aggression, so high. We actually had a fierce debate on Monday about this.
I've had a few too. So your high is your aggressive number?
I actually mix it up because I was telling Doug this. I often will not have my RNG ready because I play on like an iPad most of my sessions and I'm just like hanging out. So I'll ask my girlfriend for a number, but because of human bias, I have to mix up also where the aggression is. So for example, I have to make the aggression like 20 to 40 for a 20% play sometimes, just so it's actually fairly likely that we're getting a true 20% shot or whatever.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Shout out to Dan Rabinowitz in chat, by the way. YouTube chat. Great tournament player. I just gave him a little shit. He was surprised by it, so want to give him the shout out.
See, C-bet and then 10 pairs, and Daniel takes a real small lead. The min bet.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot from both players actually. The min bet lead on the board pairing turn. It's not just been middle and bottom cards too. It's also been the top card pairing sometimes.
Okay.
Interesting to see.
And
Doug does raise and it gets through.
On the left, very dynamic turn, and it goes check, check. Pretty good run out for, obviously DNAG's is going to have some missed flush draws, but a lot of his other straights and cards have improved to 2 pair. So you can see some big bets here from Daniel. Could obviously see some small sizes for his like 9 and 6x. We do see kind of the middling size with his top 2 pair and the snap from Doug. Yeah, kind of a spot it makes sense to not go huge with his hand because he blocks all of Doug's best hero calls, but obviously that hand could merit a really big size. But you gotta balance your all your sizes. You gotta put value in all of them. See, just check down pot on the right, and could go checked all the way down. And
it does.
Daniel wins with the ace king.
Guardia78, is there a difference between min bet and checking? Yes, but it is a small difference. Your brain is thinking about poker in the right way if you ask that question. Good stuff. Especially out of position. In position, it's different because you reopen the betting and your opponent can now raise, so it's much different. But out of position, a min bet and a check are as similar as two actions can be, other than, betting 1 big blind and 2 big blinds. They're equally alike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be a lot more careful when you do it in position, as Mike said, because you actually give your opponent the opportunity to raise it, whereas when you're out of position, your opponent doesn't really dictate much difference in your opponent's action.
It's often why you don't see you certainly see it, but you don't see too much small betting in position on the later streets specifically. You see it a lot on the flop or in a pot that is checked down, but you don't often see, for example, raise pre-flop, bet 33% pot on the flop, bet 33% pot on the turn, bet 33% pot on the river. It happens, but it's fairly rare compared to using larger sizes on the later streets.
Especially because as the pots get bigger, small bet sizes can be costly because you're not getting that much extra value and you're giving your opponent the chance to blow you off the weaker portion of your range. So you can end up costing yourself a lot. So be careful when you bet small. Another checked pot on the right. Turn jack is going to be a turn that Doug obviously could have some leads on. Goes check again, and now DNAGS has a decision. Checks down the river. This should be a pretty good spot for a lot of Daniel's check down range. He's going to have a bunch of ace-x in this line. So I was gonna say you would see some. A lot of times when Doug bets here, it's gonna be for the really big size because he's kind of saying when you bet here, you're almost saying you beat a check down ace. So when you're repping a hand that beats top pair, big sizes usually make sense.
Indeed. Daniel's sitting out, so we're gonna have a short break, it seems. Smokey79 with a question: How can you recognize when it's a block bet or a value bet? It can be one and the same. A block bet is more of a mechanical description of your bet. It's a small bet, typically out of position. So that's a block bet. A block bet can be both for value and as a bluff. They're not mutually exclusive, block bet and value bet. So you can block bet for value, for example. But yeah, typically block bets are out of position. Value bet is kind of just us humans prescribing what is this bet, what do we want to happen, similar to how you'd say this is a bluff. So that's not actually a mechanical description. That's more talking about the strategy.
Yeah, and basically the only time you actually ever are 100% value betting is the river, because up to that you're basically just betting equity. If you have the nuts on the flop, sure, but like for the most part, you're just betting your equity rather than value versus a bluff. So it's better to think in like, as Mike kind of talked about, why you're betting as a whole, not why you're betting your exact hand.
For sure. Hate to keep plugging upswing articles. Oh wait, no I don't. We have a great one about why to bet in poker. Let me find that one so I can tell you guys what to Google.
It's not just as simple as I have top pair, so I bet.
No, it's not. It's not even as simple as I value bet or I bluff. Yeah, so the easy URL on this one, guys, upswingpoker.com/ybet, y-bet. The article is called "The Only Two Valid Reasons to Bet in Poker. Every Other Reason is Wrong." Forgive the clickbait, but it is pretty damn true. Talks about the two ways to bet from, I believe it's from, oh wow, coincidentally another Matt Jonda inspired piece of content. So this is from one of his books. He talks about the two ways to bet. I believe it's his more recent book, Nolan Hold'em for Advanced Players. He talks about it. It's not the reasons you'd expect, so I'll drop those in the chat.
It's just the Matt Janda plug day, eh?
I guess so, yeah. Might as well put a cap on it by saying he has a great module in the Upswing Lab, our most popular course. The module is called Introduction to GTO. If you have always heard that acronym GTO, but you're not sure what it is, or maybe you are sure what it is, but you're not exactly sure how it functions in poker, and you kind of want to get the 101 class about it, go ahead and join the Upswing Lab for $99. Watch that module, watch any other content you're interested in watching, and you can cancel after 1 month. Get all that valuable info for just $99, or you could stick around, become a part of our community, improve your skills every month with updated content, ranges, etc. Yeah, check that out. It's called the Upswing Poker Lab.
See a pretty big triple barrel by D-Negs on the right, and he takes it down. One of those textures again where pretty blank to middling card run out. So pretty good spot for Daniel to use some big bets. Not comfortable as the out of position player when you rarely improve to the the overcards that come in. See a 3-bet on the left, and as we talked about, a bit deeper there, so Doug is 3-betting a bit smaller on the left than he will on the right. If anyone is newer to the stream and wondering why, that's basically his strategy, and pretty common strategy that when you get deeper, common misconception is when you're deeper, you want to use bigger sizes, but that more so actually applies. It's kind of like it reverses. When you're out of position at 100 big blinds, you typically 3-bet bigger than when you're in position. But then as you get deeper, it kind of flips back, and you actually want to keep pots a bit smaller when you're out of position, so you actually now go back to a smaller size. Small bet from D-Negs on the left. Turn king, you could definitely see some big bets here from Daniel, especially because they're deeper. So as we just talked about, like he gets to leverage his in positional advantage and their deep stack sizes to use some big bets here if he chooses to. Not much point in using anything small on this turn. So yeah, I would expect some bigger bets and checks. You do see the check. And here, Doug obviously has multiple sizes. He can use block because he'll have some 3x and queen x. I want to value bet small and then some bluffs. So here you do see the smaller size. And obviously he's going to put some king x here in as well. But yeah, kind of wrapping a queen or some sort of pair worse than a king, basically.
10K bet from Doug on the right in this 3-bet pot. Quick call, 2 pair versus 2 pair. Nice hand for Daniel there. Bit of a cooler.
Pretty I missed the turn action. Pretty you could see all the money going in on that turn at a pretty high frequency. Both have 2 pair on a double flush draw board with no straight completes. So
yeah, so Daniel decided to just check call a pot size bet on the turn. That actually was not a 3-bet pot. That was a single raise pot. Doug bet big on the flop, about 80% or so. With his 2 pair got called. Daniel turned the bigger 2 pair. Doug goes for the pot size bet. Daniel just calls. River. Did the river complete draws? I believe it did, right? Yeah, the river completed. Yeah, completed the front door flush draw and 5-7 for a straight. So Daniel, definitely too thin to check shove. He's got to just call. Could see him raising the turn. That could definitely be a thing.
His hand makes a lot of sense. Like he doesn't block any of the high equity draws, and his hand's somewhat vulnerable and doesn't stack off that well on the river. So you want to obviously have some slow plays on turn, but I feel like his would prefer raise, and you'd actually want to protect yourself with some of the other 2 pairs, like the weaker 2 pairs that don't get value against that type of hand.
Right, for sure. For sure.
See on the left here was this check raise and then block bet.
I believe this is a 3-bet pot actually, but let me confirm. Yeah,
it was 3-bet on the turn, so maybe it was C-bet check turn.
Yeah, 3-bet from Doug, small C-bet, about a third on the flop, check, or on the turn, who bet here? Check to Daniel, who bet 1/3, right? And now he's betting again. Quick call from Doug. Pair of 7s for Doug. Makes a nice hero call. Drags that 50K pot.
The quick hero call. Definitely an interesting spot where DNX kind of goes like small bet turn and then medium bet river. So a little difficult to rep a ton in that line. I mean, he obviously has some queen X and stuff, but yeah, very interesting sizing progression from him there. One of those spots where he could just be a little bit like that. Those are the spots where inexperience can really show up, where you're not really sure what you're trying to rep, especially you're not really telling a consistent story, say turn to river. So yeah, definitely an interesting one. Someone had asked too, do I use overbet C-bets and 6 max? Yes, but they're a bit more rare. You don't C-bet flop that much. There's textures that you do. Obvious one is like ace king and then a blank, where you have ace king and your opponent doesn't. You can use some ace king, ace queen that they won't have, especially. Then you can use some big sizes, but too often not. And then there's some other ones, but yeah, they're not that important. If you're asking if you use them in 6 max, I probably wouldn't worry about them right now and just work on the fundamentals until you get to a point where it matters. See a check down pot on the right.
Tricky Mick 123, sorry to interrupt, Ryan, says, Mike, do you get a bonus for every hand Doug wins? I actually only get paid if Doug wins, so that's why I root for him, guys. You guys have always wondered why I'm so biased. It's my livelihood on the line, guys. Bear with me.
Was that small print on the contract that you missed?
Oh, no. I was just so happy to take this opportunity, I was opportunity cost of doing business.
See a check down pot, and then Daniel takes down the river. I think he raised a bet from Doug.
Yes, that is what happened.
It's funny, I get comments like this a decent amount. Someone just said, I can't imagine Ryan ever being angry, seemed like so chilled. But it's like, does Mike seem like the type of guy who would get angry? Like, it's pretty hard to give off a vibe that you get angry frequently on stream. We're doing something like we enjoy doing in like a pretty casual atmosphere. So it'd be hard to come off as someone who does get angry easily.
Yeah, people are saying yes, because if they've been watching a lot of the streams, they've already seen me get a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say angry. I clap back at these guys sometimes, and yeah. It's kind of a thin line between clapping back and being angry. So I think they can imagine it.
Oh, Mike will cut a bitch. I did see. Oh, there's one of my swears for the stream too. So I only got one other one, but that one felt appropriate.
Yeah, that was good shit. Oh, there's mine. Big guy 1066. Who plugs upswing better than you, Mike? It's hard to imagine someone who plugs it more. I don't think anyone else could possibly even knows half the amount of articles we've written and what's covered in the courses, all that stuff. I definitely know the most. If there's ever an upswing poker test of some kind, I'm definitely your boy to take it.
You're the number one pick in the draft for that.
Yeah, for when it comes to knowledge of upswing poker suite of content.
But real useful stuff there. It's useful right now for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Very. It's fun to be able to just recall a relevant article and things of that nature.
Yeah. Let's see, I could see some big bets here from DNegs on the right. 10 high, a couple low cards. So he could definitely decide to go with a bigger bet here. And he does. He goes for the 2/3 size. He could obviously still bet this at a high frequency and mix this big and small size, or he could just decide to use the big bet and check. When he uses the big size, though, this is one of the worst turns in the deck, so you'll see a lot of checks here from DNegs. Could almost, once you use the big bet and get this turn, might be easiest to just check everything unless you're really good at balance, which we do see the check from DNegs. And again, similar spot where Doug can use some small sizes on the turn. He doesn't need to go big in this spot because stacks will still go in on the river. But he does check back, and now DNegs can obviously use some small sizes here to, especially if he has some overpairs that maybe don't have a heart and don't want to put a ton of money in. You can see a small size, but he does go for the full pot and the snap call, and he uses the jacks without a heart and gets snapped by worse. Wow, that was a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, pretty sick. Got to imagine Doug had a 10 with a heart, even maybe. It's very. I could see that. 10 with a high heart, I would imagine bets turn at a pretty high frequency. So maybe like a 10-9, 9 of hearts, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like.
What are you gonna do other than call?
Yeah, has to call. Those are the spots from Doug where Daniel uses the big size on flop and then has like the exact hand that really benefits. the overpair that's directly over top pair without a heart, really wants to put in a lot of money early. And, when you have a hand that's just worse than that, you're not in a great spot because you have to call, but you're basically paying them off.
Right, for sure. Reggie Time asks in chat, what does it mean when you say he can mix here? So that's basically shorthand for saying he can use a mixed strategy here. That's another thing you could learn on Upswing if you want. Just Google mixed strategy poker, and we have a really good article about that. I'm sure Nico, our all-star mod, will link it for you guys. But it's basically when the best action to take is very close between two or more options, what is often best is to mix your strategy between those options. So, if calling and raising are very similar in expected value in a situation, then you will maybe call 50%, raise 50%, something along those lines. That's using a mixed strategy. And you implement that by using a random number generator or some way to randomize your play, and then you make your play based on the random number that comes up. Again, though, if you want an in-depth explanation more than that, go ahead and Google search mixed strategy poker. Upswing should be near the top. We have a really good article about that, so check that out.
We also, someone had asked, how do they know, like they get lost on the positions, and they asked, how do I know who's in position? And they had mentioned the button, and yeah, basically if you just look at the button, whoever has the button under their, or like right next to their avatar, is the person who's in position throughout the hand. So yeah, in heads up, in any form of poker, basically, whoever has the button is in position. So in heads up specifically, whoever's in, there's only in and out of position. There's no relative position. So your heads up, in heads up, if you have the button, you're in position.
Yeah, live or heads up makes that very simple to know who's in position.
Yeah.
So there's only two options. There was a form of heads up that was much more common in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's actually the way they play heads up in rounders, where the person who acts first preflop is actually the out of position player. So on the left table that we're looking at right now, Daniel would actually be the big blind in that type of heads up, and Doug would be the small blind and thus act first. That form of heads up is much lamer, though, because it's so disadvantageous to be that small blind player, because not only do you have to act first pre-flop, you also have to act first post-flop. So I think that's probably why Sites or whoever decided to make the change changed it to the button is the small blind and acts first, because it's just a significantly more interesting game. You get to play 90% of hands on the button, whereas in that other form of poker, if you're in the small blind out of position, you should probably play 40, 50%, unless you implement a limping strategy, then that gets all complicated. You get to play a little bit more, but overall, that form of poker, that form of heads up is lame, super lame.
Sounds like, yeah, because you don't have as much to defend either, right? Like part of the problem in heads up is you have to defend your big blind, you're out of position. Whereas in that form, you only have to defend a small blind. You just aren't as incentivized to play as many hands, which,
right.
That's what's fun about heads up is all the wide range spots.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what that form of heads up is, it's basically playing blind versus blind in a 6-max game. It's the exact same. So in a 6-max game or a 9-handed game, if it folds to a small blind acts first, they're going to be out of position against the big blind. So it's the same game as heads up. So, or as that old form of heads up. And we play enough of that blind versus blind stuff. We don't need more of that. Heads up tables, change it up. Do it like this.
That'd be like the only thing that'd be good about that is if you really want to work on your blind versus blind play, that would be really useful. But yeah, much less, more of a drill thing than an exciting form of poker to watch.
Jimmy's in our ear saying that he's not sure what I said was right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I mean, I know Rounders played it the way I said, where the button acts second post, but neither here nor there.
Anything that's in Rounders has to be true too. Like that's the Bible of poker.
Exactly. I also remember the old sites like the original sites, like the Paradise Pokers of the world were had that heads up style, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. If chat, if you guys, any of you know for sure, let me know. Could have sworn what I said was right.
We see was this check raise on the right?
That's a good question. Yeah, check raise flop.
Okay, check raise, then he checks turn, and we see a 3 of spades river. So depending on how polar Doug's flop raise strategy is, you wouldn't expect too many blocks, especially if the pot looks somewhat big. So it seems like he used a bit bigger size. So yeah, he does check river. Could still have some check shoves in this line, but obviously some check calls as well. We do see the check fold. Someone asking, when did I start playing poker? I started playing poker like 10 years ago. I was fortunate enough that I basically started making money right away. So a bit of luck, a bit of hard work, and yeah, then I've been playing ever since. So.
Paddle123 says, you are correct, Mike. I remember the small blind being out of position on most sites back in the day. Ladbrokes had it different as well, says Giddy Up 33. Thank you for the backup, boys. Take that, Jimmy. Oh, so that's what I had said wrong. Okay, so I misunderstood what Jimmy was correcting, as we see Daniel 3-bet the left. Jimmy was saying that sites changed it because they realized people actually want to play heads up, so they made it a playable game. As we see our first 4-bet of the session on the left here from Doug. 10.4k to go with just 2 cards in their hands, none on the board.
All in, and it's a flip.
Ace King versus the Jiggities. Ace on the turn. Doug's going to win that flip.
Boat over boat. Big stack for Doug now on the left.
MRN4K3D says, why do you guys give so much advice? Is it to make people play a certain way so you said explore that, but I'm going to assume exploit that. I have heard there are insider secrets only insiders know. Feel like sharing any. That was a pretty loaded message. It got more loaded as I went. But the reason, I'm just going to answer the first half there. the reason we give so much advice on the stream is because we're trying to make a valuable stream for you guys. We're trying to give you some incentive to tune in beyond watching these two sickos play for huge amounts of money. And there's some lulls in the action sometimes. We don't have the cards up, so we kind of have to talk about other things. And oftentimes, the other things we choose to talk about are the strategies, the general strategies, and how each player should be playing their ranges in the given spots. So that's why these are pretty advice-heavy streams.
See a 3-bet, C-bet, and barrel from Doug. And a very polarizing river.
Super interesting card.
Yeah, a lot of Doug's bluffs complete on this river, and then obviously he still has very strong hands. And it's a really unfortunate spot for a lot of D-Negs' bluff catchers because he's just not going to have that much King X that arrives at this river. He will have some 2 pairs in hands like King 10, but everything else is basically a bluff catcher. And Doug does shove and take it down. So definitely we got a big stack on both tables from either player. So right now we won't see any of the gigantic pots for those of you that don't think an 80K pot is big enough.
I see. Jimmy and Ari are telling us something, guys, but it was more about the heads up stuff. We're going to move on from that, the old form of heads up.
Did someone's asking, have either of us ever won significant money off of your good friends from poker? Have you ever won any significant money off a friend from poker?
As we see Doug pick off the left. Not significant. I have a reverse though. Deep in the 25K WSOP mix max, Ryan Fee flopped a set versus my top pair, button versus big blind. So Ryan Fee won a lot of my equity there. So
very nice.
That was a rough one. I was 1 of 24, 16 paid in a 25K tournament. And I was fucking dialed in. I check raised bluff Sam tricking on the river in one hand. It was fucking sweet. But unfortunately, I just wasn't studied enough in tournaments. I made a really bad. I got a little bit shorter and then made a really, really suboptimal shove with 10-8 suited in the big blind versus a button open, and I got crippled from that. So, yeah, I still think about that tournament sometimes and think, God damn it, so sad. But then I also sometimes think, well, I'm kind of glad I didn't have that tax burden of cashing a 25K since I only had like 10% of myself. Would be kind of lame to have to deal with that. So I do see the silver lining every time. But man, I would love if my handed mob had that 50K score or more or whatever.
Yeah.
Shame.
1 of 24. Why settle at 50K? Whatever was up top, that's what you should be.
Right, exactly. Which by the way, that was a sick one. As we see Doug pot the right. You still need to have your answer for if you've ever won significant money off a friend, but a pretty sick hand happened. So the way that mix max tournament worked, Daniel calls 10K in the middle on the right. The way that mix max tournament worked is day 1 was 9-handed, day 2 was 6-handed, then it went to heads up on day for the final 4. And when they were 5-handed, as we see D-Negs drag that pot on the right, nice one for him. 5-handed, it was Jason Moe, Ryan Fee, Vanessa Selpst, and 2 other people. Vanessa Selpst 4-bet ripped button versus Ryan Fee small blind, 9-8 offsuit, or rather 9-8 double suited, if you will, into Ryan's ace king and dinked it. She went on to win the tournament, beat Jason Moe heads up. Man, that was just painful. We had three people with good stacks with 24 left, and none of us were able to take it down. A shame. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. What's your answer for if you've ever taken significant money off a friend in poke?
Yeah, so none of my friends really play poker, so it's kind of like, I mean, I have friends I've made through poker, but I guess like when I first started out playing poker, I learned how to play poker in my friend's basement playing with like Lego as chips, and I used to win those home games a bunch, so that kind of started my poker bankroll. So, I won a few $5 home games for like $45 a few times, so yeah, at that point it was significant. Now not so much, but yeah. Unfortunately, no 25K deep spots against my friends.
Yeah. Sick flex for me there. I did say I only had like 10% of myself though, so that I feel like that negates the flex immediately.
Still fun to play at 25K.
Yeah, it was a privilege. My table going into day 2 was like Jason Mercier, Nuts and Ho, Sam Trickett, 2 other somewhat famous people. And I remember Doug walked over, who had busted on day 1 trying to bluff a literal billionaire. Well played, Doug. I guess he had the bottom of his range, right?
Yeah.
Trying to bluff a billionaire. What's the guy doing? Anyway, Doug comes over, sees my table, and he's like, "Hey, Mike, soft table." It was really funny.
Thanks, Doug.
It was really funny. The funny thing is, I was talked to him in private a moment later, and he was like, "No, I really think that," but I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go into it. But yeah, there's some shade there.
Was this D-Negs took a pretty big pot down the right with a nut flush a few hands back, and now on the left there's another flush, and now the river. It's the backdoor straight, so it's not that relevant. Like 10-9 shouldn't be really present in either people's ranges. So basically, flushes and 2 pairs / sets are going to be the nuts here. So we'll see about 1-1 for D-Negs. We've seen him shove a lot in these spots today, and Doug's had to fold basically every time. So we do see another shove, and this time the snap call. Wow. Somewhat thin there from D-Negs.
Yeah, that is really thin. Let me run that action. So Doug just double barreled, small on both streets, like 40% flop, 3rd on turn. Yeah, that okay. And then Daniel goes for the man.
That's small.
And then Daniel shoves when checks. Do you? I like betting in Daniel's spot, right? I think it's a bet with top pair. But what do you think? Do you think it's a bet for a smaller size? How would you play that spot?
He has 1-1, right? So it's kind of hard to go smaller on the river. He could have a block size there, but it's again one of the spots where it doesn't really make that much sense because you don't really have like that would be the only hand he has in his range that wants to bet small. So to build a range around one hand seems kind of useless. So yeah, I don't know, it just feels a bit thin with no spade blocker. But again, heads up, ranges are a bit wider. Kind of depends on what he thinks Doug's turn block range looks like. Like if he thinks it has a lot of ace jack, king jack with a spade, then that's what you're trying to get value from. Otherwise, there's not much left for Doug to call you with that's worse. But yeah, definitely interesting spot. That'd be an interesting one to talk to. I mean, Doug will probably bring that one up anyways, but interesting to hear what he has to say about that one.
Yeah, for sure. I'll note that one down to maybe be the first one we talk about. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen the Doug interviews or first time tuning in, whatever, just a refresher for those of you who already know this. Doug joins us for a chat when play ends, comes on for 20 minutes to an hour, so usually on the lower end of that. He has access to the replayer and can sort it by biggest pots. So what we typically do is he just lists off all the hands, recaps them as we see Daniel 4-bet on the left, and it gets through. He looks through all the hands, recaps them, and then talks about the ones that he's willing to talk about to the extent he's willing to talk about them. And then we kind of get into these more sometimes off topic, sometimes tangentially related to the challenge questions that you guys are giving us throughout the stream. So yeah, get those questions in. And if you have a question about a hand, feel free to drop it if you have like a specific question, but keep in mind, we'll probably cover every hand that's notable. So maybe spend a little bit more effort coming up with the creative questions.
Are you still doing that rapid fire round with him? Yeah, I saw you did that the one session.
Yeah, it's not so rapid, but yeah, we do it. He definitely doesn't answer rapidly, so it ends up being a pretty slow rapid round, but that's fine. We had one person, Marlo from Twitter, kept dropping it in the chat as we see Doug C-bet on the right get called in a 3-bet pot. Bet from Daniel on the left with a 6, I guess for value. Got called by a king though. Interesting one there.
We're sure that was Daniel that bet river for sure.
Yeah, Daniel bet river. Check turn. Yeah, and then Daniel bet river. That's really interesting. Huh.
It was a very strong 6, and he blocked, I assume, right?
No, he actually didn't block. He bet like 3K into 4,800. Yeah, weird. 31K in the middle on the right now.
Another, less than 1-1 on the river. So, and this river specifically, if D-Negs is going to bet, obviously it's going to be for a shove size. He It's not a great river for. I didn't see the action exactly here, but yeah, he does shove 2 pair and gets snapped off by 1 pair. So a nice pot for DNegs, and they're basically flipped on either table now. They both have close to a 200k stack on both tables.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough day for our tracker to try to realize what or keep track of what they're in for. When one of them keeps adding.
See a check back and then a 2/3 size bet from DNegs on the right. 3 bet on the left. Very obviously dynamic river. 4 straight completes. You would see still DNegs can have some small sizes here. Could bet like a block size and obviously some big sizes as well. Wouldn't expect much outside of those 2 sizes. You do see a check, and now Doug's going to have some hands he's going to want to turn into bluffs and then some missed spades. So from his perspective, you do see the 2/3 size bet.
Wormhouse says one needs to balance out so we can get a sleeve pot. Amazing. Doug's bet does get through. He drags that 4K pot. Giddy Up 33, who has watched the stream a lot, says, "Do you do shoutouts?"
Do you do shoutouts?
That's really funny.
By the way, is this sleeve request a new thing, or have they been asking you to cut your sleeves for a while now?
It was, I believe, the Monday session last week where Jamie Kerstetter was on with me, and we came up with it because she was wearing an upswing tank top. Doug was, we didn't know, but I mean, we knew Doug was wearing an upswing tank top. Yeah, exactly. Very strongly assumed Doug would be wearing a tank top. So we figured, oh, for the interview, we'll all be wearing tank tops if I were to wear one. So we came up with that.
I'm actually going to step out for a second, grab a drink, but I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Robert Moria on YouTube says it's not a bad idea for an upswing series afterwards to have Doug go over how Daniel's playing street by street, where he's playing suboptimally, how he's adjusting to exploit. As we see Daniel overbet on the left on this 3 flush straighty board. Yeah, Robert, we will actually have some content on upswing in some capacity around the challenge. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like. As we see Daniel 4-bet on the right, call from Doug on the left. He is good versus Daniel's bottom pair bluff. Nice call from Doug there to drag that 27k pot. See what Doug decides to do versus the 4-bet on the right. But yeah, just to put a cap on that, Robert, we will have some content around this challenge. Probably around DNegs' leaks like you asked for, and other things, Doug's general approach, how we approach studying for this challenge, etc., etc. That will be covered on Upswing in some capacity. Details still TBD. 4-bet from Doug on the left now. Doug's 4-bet got through, and on the right we see Daniel going for a quarter pot bet in his 4-bet pot. $32K in the middle here. Daniel's going to go for another small bet.
Yeah, so this is
that was going to set up about a 33% pot size river shove, but we didn't get there.
How did the pot get to that point?
4-bet from Daniel, small bet flop.
Okay. So yeah, those are the spots where a lot of small bets make sense. How's my feeling about Daniel losing big today? Well, unfortunately, there's not 2 big stacks at one side because that would make it a lot easier. If they both had 200k at one table, it'd be very easy for it to go either direction quickly. But I still have faith. You know, heads up, things can happen very quickly. Really thought Ryan was going to change into a tank top. That would have been a good play to just come back in with a tank top on.
That would have been really funny. All right, I'm going to take a quick break on my own. Be right back.
See a 3-bet pot on the right, and we do see a call. Mono flop. So the king the jack, quite good for Doug, but the mono suit, I'm not sure how much it plays in heads up, but pretty high frequency check when the board is all one suit and you're the 3-better pre-flop. Just in general, when the flop is mono, there's just less aggression as a whole. A lot of checking from both players. But we do see a 40% pot bet from DNegs. So pretty big bet for the texture. How do I say my last name? Yeah, it's just Risk. It's German, so like I believe I don't speak any German, but I believe the like actual pronunciation is like Riska, but I go by Risk, and so does my whole family. So Risk is good. I used to get Risque a lot too. I saw that in the chat. Who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for Doug. I'm rooting for the guy that I'm doing the commentary for, right? So, but yeah, I'm just a fan of like I've taken Doug's heads up course, and I found like that helped my game a lot. Even though I don't play much heads up myself, I found the course really useful to just help my game as a whole. So we do see a pretty big pot there from Doug with the 9 of clubs on the river 5 flush. But yeah, so I want him to win for the help he gave me in my heads up game. Like I said, every now and then I'll hop in the heads up pool and play somewhat for fun, but I don't think I'm losing big in the heads up pool. I think I'm doing all right. On the right, we see a c-bet and we see the ace turn. Pretty polarizing turn for Doug. He should mainly be using pretty big bets on this turn and then some checks. We do see a check. And
you guys want to see a cute dog with a big? Oh, you guys want to see a cute dog with a big toy? Oh, never mind. Well, there she is, but
still a cute dog, just not with the toy.
Yeah, she was just holding it in this way where it looked so big compared to how small she is. All right, we got an overbet from Daniel on the right. You might have already said that. Sorry if you did.
Nope. C-bet check. We talked about how Doug would mainly use big bets on the turn. He did check back, and now DNegs is using a big bet himself. So DNegs obviously has a ton of missed straight draws in this river that can use the big size, and then you'll have 2 pairs and some slow plays as well. He could potentially go as thin as just an ace, but yeah, you do see this is the type of hand that won't always check raise the flop. You have to be a lot more careful on these textures, just going too crazy with 2 pair. My main game is just like 6 max, 500 L and up. So a lot of 500 zoom, 1K reg tables, that type of thing. What'd you go with beverage wise?
My girlfriend got me a new brand of hard kombucha, so I'm trying that.
Oh, nice.
Amarena Cherry. It's good. It's this color. Drinks this color tend to be my speed.
That's your jam?
Yeah. They tend to have the right taste, which is not like alcohol. Very important to me, my alcohol.
No dry January or anything like that for you then?
I don't even know what that is. That's how little I like it.
Not a fan. Well, sitting out. Looks like another short break. Someone asked you if I have any money on this. I do not. I'm just a fan like you guys. Not everything I do in life has to revolve around betting on things, right? So I guess I got to take a break from that now and again.
Just most things.
Yeah, exactly. I get that. I get the the profiling of that. I must love all things gambling related, and I'm not really in that camp, right? I actually don't do much outside of poker.
Do you get the poker and gambling themed gifts, like small gifts for Christmas and birthdays and stuff like that?
So I used to. It was actually funny. At one point, someone got me for like a Secret Santa, and it was like a group where I wasn't that. We were like all more acquaintances, right? And someone said something like, "I don't really understand poker, so I don't really know what to get Ryan as a gift." And I was like, "I don't need. You don't just have to give me poker themed things. Like if someone you don't buy him a calculator for Christmas or something like that, right?"
Exactly. It's just so weird for people because for most people interested in poker, it's their hobby, right? I mean, I would guess 90% of the people currently watching the stream, poker is their hobby. They're a poker fan, maybe a casual player, maybe a somewhat serious player. But so then when they find someone who does it for a job, it might kind of throws off the computing a little bit. It's like, well, wait a second, that's something, that's a hobby, and you're doing it for a job. You must really love it, right? But not enough to wear chip themed socks, Las Vegas themed socks.
We do see a 4-bet pot on the right and a 3-bet and C-bet on the left. The one gift I did get, so we had our baby shower yesterday, the informal baby shower, because or sorry, the
all in for Doug. We got another flip here. Ooh, interesting flop. Daniel's gonna need that. That'll work for Daniel. He drags that 100K pot with the tens.
Big pot. So as the theme continues, the right is Daniel's table and the left is Doug's table.
Yeah, that is definitely the theme of the stream so far, with Daniel up about a buy-in today, if I had to guess. It's close, though.
Some big flips there.
Yeah, but both players are in for a lot of money right now. They're certainly not in for the 80K they both started.
So the one thing I was going to say about the gifts is normally I'm of your camp. Like, I don't wear poker themed socks and stuff like that, but we had our baby shower yesterday, and one of my wife's friends gave her we're having a son, and it's a little jumper for him that says "Daddy's future poker buddy." I thought that was pretty funny. Like, I normally am not a big supporter of like all those random gifts, but I thought that was
that's great. That's really good. Baby shower gifts, I feel like, tend to be that kind of thing, like almost filler gifts in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, it's like novelty gifts rather is a better way to put it. So
yeah,
seems appropriate for a baby shower. Congrats, by the way. I didn't realize y'all were expecting. Good for you.
In March, so it's coming up.
Sick.
Someone's asking, how deep would you have to be to fold 10-10 pre-flop? Basically, it won't matter what depth they're at. A big pot there on the right for Daniel with the queen high flush. Basically, you're never going to fold 10s pre, because you'll never put yourself in a spot where you have to fold 10s. So if you're not comfortable stacking off with 10s at any depth, you're just not going to put in that extra bet. So you'll 3-bet them and then call the 4-bet, or you'll 4-bet and call the 5-bet, whatever it may be.
Right.
But you're basically never being the aggressor with 10s and then folding.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in context of, a situation that the person asking the question or a lot of people in chat might have been in. Imagine you're in like a 9-handed or 8-handed live game. Under the gun, a known type player raises, and then you're in the big blind 7 players later, and everyone folds to you, and you have 10s. Perhaps a spot you're going to flat because you don't want to get 4-betting from that person, and even like 3-betting for value against that person would be somewhat dicey, so you would just call. So like Ryan just said, you sort of don't get yourself into the situation where you would fold them. It's pretty rare that you would. There's certainly situations where it can make sense to go for, your sort of value 4-betting against one, value 3 or 4-betting versus one guy and planning to fold versus the other. It's kind of multi-way spots, but yeah, good stuff from Ryan there.
And heads up, not really a thing. We do see a 3-bet and check from D-Negs, and we see, as this is what we talked about. This is what I would have expected more on the other mono texture, where a really small bet from Doug, and we see a check on the turn. And now on this turn, could see some more small bets. I would expect small or quite big here. Wouldn't really expect. But then again, Doug just goes with the more middling size and takes it down. I mean, I guess at that SPR, you don't really need huge bets to get all the money in. So maybe that's just his big size there. And Doug takes a decent sized pot on the right with 2 pair.
Yeah, nice one for him there. Robert Moria, if Helmuth is complaining about a certain play, is that an indicator it was a good play? No. But thanks for the question. I'd say no. It doesn't mean it was a bad play, that's for sure. What do you got over there? You drinking a beer?
Yeah, I'm just drinking we got a case of like 24 of these for $25, they were a pretty good deal. And they're this is the sour. It's like a variety pack. So I'm not usually that big of a sour drinker, but I like this one.
Nice. Yeah, I think you were drinking the same thing last time, so I guess you haven't torched the 24 pack yet.
Yeah, I don't drink as much as I used to. That's for sure.
Yeah, probably a good thing.
Yeah.
3-bet pot on the right, check on the flop. Brad Freeman asks, can we tweet questions for Doug to Mike Brady? Yes, you can. At mbradycf on Twitter. Feel free to shoot your questions to me. I'm significantly more likely to see the tweets then the messages go by so fast. Sometimes I'm looking at the other chat, sometimes I'm looking at the action. So if you want me to for sure see your question, it's not a guarantee I'll ask it, but if you want me to for sure see it, tweet at me at @MBCF, and you can also tweet at Ryan at Poker with Risk.
I like questions like that. Someone says like high roller drinking cheap beer. For one, I never said I was a high roller. For two, is there like once you get to a certain income, or do you only get to drink expensive beer? I like the taste of this.
Right, that's correct. He's actually right. You're only allowed to drink expensive beer once you get rich.
It's just like set in stone. You must have at least this income range to drink this beer.
Doug goes for the bluff on the river on the right. Daniel picks him off with the pocket jacks. Nice hand for him there.
Basically, more stack building on the right for Daniel, and more stack building on the left for Doug.
Yeah, so the way that one went down, guys, for those of you who missed it, it came Queen 9-4 after Doug called a 3-bet with King 7 suited. Flop goes check, check, turns a 10, giving Doug a gut shot, and he obviously still has his overcard. Daniel checks again with his pair of jacks, and Doug decides to unload the clip from there, bets the turn and the river. But Daniel's waiting in the wing with one of the best possible bluff catchers. He calls, takes that one down. 18K in the middle on the left. I believe this is a three bet pot. Daniel c-bet is my assumption, especially if he tank check that turn.
And a c-bet and check raise from Doug on the right. This turn, I wouldn't think he has to go that polar on this turn. You could just pick but he does go for pot. So I'm not as familiar with heads up, so I don't know what the weakest. What do you think the weakest value bet Doug's going to make here on the right, Mike, for a pot size bet on that turn?
After check raising and betting, I mean his just a jack X that check raised the flop, I would imagine. So I'm not exactly sure how he's choosing which jack X to check raise the flop with, but a king jack, for example, that decided not to 3-bet pre-flop, perhaps. I don't think you'd want to go that big of a size with, a jack 10, that's for sure. And he's probably not even going to check raise that too often. So it's probably king jack is going to be like the bottom. And then it's most of the range is going to be 2 pairs and sets, essentially.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't really necessarily expecting a huge bet there because I figured his check raise could be more linear. So the pot size bet obviously just means, like you talked about, he wouldn't be betting the weaker jack X for that line. A few people asking, it's a local brewery, so you guys, unless you're around the Toronto area, you wouldn't know it. It's called Wellington Brewery, so probably none of the beers that you guys have had.
Yeah, I'm curious if anyone's heard of that. I'm always curious when there's one person who knows what that is. I brought up a local San Diego hard seltzer maker once, and someone was like, "Yeah, I love them. Local San Diego, good shit," or something like that. Hell yeah. Guess you get a few thousand people watching something, you can find people who know about anything.
Yeah.
Odd Vark, as we see a 6K pot on the right. Odd Vark on YouTube asks, chips haven't been flying the past couple of sessions as much as usual, as we see Daniel drag that one with ace high. Is this because of a change in strategy by Doug or Daniel, or just the way the cards came? I'm going to say it's just the way the cards came primarily. That said, I think the session results are a little bit deceptive with regards to your question. So it doesn't seem like the chips have been flying quite as much as they were before, because we're not seeing big 6-figure wins. We're not seeing big 6-figure swings. But there have been a lot of pots. I mean, as you can see on this current situation, we have Daniel with a $250,000 stack on the right and Doug with a nearly $250,000 stack on the left. So big pots are clearly happening this session. And they have been in the past sessions. They've just been more evenly distributed. I would say in the last 7 sessions or so, it's just been pretty even on who's winning how much. Or it's a combination of big pots being even and maybe Daniel winning some extra big pots, but Doug doing better in the non-showdown and the medium pots, so he's making up for a few big pots that way. So I think that's more so what's driving the perception that there's been less swings. But there has been certainly a lot of action and chips flying. So yeah, just keep an eye out, look, watch the streams closely, and you will see what I see. Trust me.
And especially in this scenario, if a few of those pots that were big on the right had been on the left table, and the stacks are closer, now pots become even bigger, and everything's different. So there's a lot of variance in just which table the good hands or the coolers or big bluffs are going down at. Someone's asking if I stream. I do stream a bit, but I also just like nowadays I don't have as much time to dedicate to streaming, but I do upload like YouTube videos and stuff. So as Mike's mentioned, if you search Poker with Risk on basically anything, you'll find YouTube videos or Twitch videos or whatever it may be.
Yeah, pretty weird to see these two big stacks and have it be within 25K. Man, these sessions are too good. I'm gonna miss when this is over. I'll tell you that, man. It makes me almost want to, like, I don't know. I hate to say something like this because it's almost like I am in a way committing to it. But if there's some big tournament that like one of our guys is running deep in, I could totally see us covering it in the same way. Just, for the lulz. Nick Petrenjo's running deep in some online thing or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, especially now that you've cultivated the audience for it, right? Like, people will come and watch, and yeah, definitely worth. People like to see big sweats.
No doubt. Albert Johnson. Oh, sorry, go on.
Just gonna say, see that and check on the left. We've seen in this spot Doug use some big sizes on these, like, obviously double paired boards. So he does go for the 2x pot. So these are really interesting because obviously it's pretty easy to bet 2x pot with a king in this spot. What the more difficult thing is, what are the good candidates to bluff with for 2x pot as well? You in Toronto or Kitchener? Looks like you're from area. Yeah, I actually live in Kitchener. Right? Well, I live in the KW region, so yeah. If you know where that is, I was born and raised in Kitchener for the most part. Technically born in Edmonton, but spent most of my youth in Kitchener.
Your fellow 500 NL Zoom reg, Big Steeler, just said in the chat, can we wish Gary Blackwood, Gazzy B12345, a happy birthday, please? Abso-fucking-lutely. Happy birthday, Gazzy B. Commentator extraordinaire.
Hopefully you bought yourself something nice with all those Zoom winnings you've been posting lately. Treated yourself to something nice.
He was actually originally gonna commentate today, but then because it was his birthday, wasn't in the cards. But he needs some birthday wishes, guys. I think he's only got an hour or so more. Maybe it might even be over where he is, his birthday. So you better get your birthday wishes in fast. Shoot a tweet at him. He's GazzyB1233 on Twitter, I think, and then he also uses Instagram. Go right now. Go comment or reply. Go give him some birthday wishes. He's a good guy. He deserves it.
Do you know how old he turned today?
I don't. I'm gonna guess 33. Pure guess.
Hopefully you're not way off and he's like 26.
Oh, I'd feel so bad. It just speaks to his maturity, not the way he looks, just his maturity.
Yeah, I can tell that's what you were going with for that. If there's one thing I know about Gazzy, is he's extremely mature.
No doubt. 3-bet, C-bet, double barrel from Daniel on the right.
It's actually a really cool spot to use, like, the double block size. And on river, it's kind of hard to get away with a small size now. You can still do it, but it's pretty difficult. There's not much of a range you rep, and in position has improved to a lot of really good hands as well. So we do see the shove and the snap from Boat versus, again, Daniel's going pretty thin in these spots.
Yeah, it almost, just speculating here, it almost seems like Daniel is seeing Doug make all these relatively big hero calls like Doug has been making throughout the challenge, kind of, as Doug has said, he's trying to call it equilibrium, generally speaking, and not let Daniel bluff him. And in some cases, that has resulted in him calling a little bit too often.
Yep.
Maybe Daniel's making an adjustment, deciding, I'm done with these fucking block bets. I am going to put Doug all in, make him call off when he's got Queen Jack there, rather than just call a block bet. Yeah. Maybe that's the kind of thing he's thinking. It's hard to say, but just looking at that board, 7-7-6, I mean, by the time you get to the river, after your opponent's called 2 bets, even at heads up, a pretty solid little chunk of their range is trips. And then not only is trips something you have to worry about, that's kind of the most obvious thing. 8-9 got there on the river, so 8-9's fair. And then was it a backdoor flush draw got there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so And Doug has loads of backdoor flush draws that he floats the flop with, turns the flush draw, calls there. So there are just loads and loads of hands that Doug can have there that are just snapping, like the one he had, but he certainly doesn't need a boat to snap. And yeah, kind of weird to see Daniel go for such a thin value bet when those are the conditions of the situation.
Yeah, like especially without a hard blocker and in a spot where even just like not considering how many strong hands Doug has, trying to think of what Doug's forced to call that's worse. Like, what hands are you actually targeting for value? And it's like some Queen X that floated flop, and then like some stationy like Ace 6, but it's not much. So yeah, pretty thin.
Thin indeed.
If that's the real Crab K-Rab in the chat, give us your input if you're still listening. What you think of that one? Seems, I would assume too thin. Not being a heads up player, I would still feel like that's way too thin.
Yeah, Big Steeler saying Doug has Ace Queen too. Most certainly, Doug does not 4-bet Ace Queen, so at least that we've seen. So he's going to have that as well. Always nice to have a good 500 NL Zoom reg to supplement the one I already have in the booth with me, to throw in some extra comments. It's good shit. Thanks for
at its finest.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Big Steeler. I really appreciate it. Got a bet from Doug on the left, 8K into 12.
We did finally see a big pot on the right go to Doug too, so might be breaking this mold of Doug wins all the pots on the left and Daniel wins all the pots on the right.
Four to a straight now. Not the most relevant thing, but relevant.
Mm-hmm. Would be more relevant on the table on the right, where stacks are much deeper and making the nuts is more important. This is 1-1, not as important.
Yeah, 2-pair or even a strong top pair, still happy to go in.
And we do see, there you go. D-Nex checks Ace 5, and Doug is happy to shovel in Ace 9. So,
yeah, interesting one there. Daniel winning a nice stack. Doug going for the thin value on the river there. Not working out for him though.
Was that 3-bet?
Yeah, I was just gonna check myself. So 3-bet pot. I was wondering who bet the flop, because I know Doug bet the turn. I think Daniel bet the flop, but I'm just double checking. Yeah, Daniel bet the flop small, Doug called. Interesting. That does seem quite thin from Doug, but then again, Daniel's not really going to be checking any Ace 10 or better on the turn, I would imagine. So It's basically, the only time he's going to get called and lose is when Daniel has a 5 with Ace 5, basically specifically like he had, or maybe 7-5 suited, something like that. Or a weird river 2-pair, something like that. So I guess it does make sense. It looks really thin on its face, but I guess it does make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Could still be too thin though, just to be clear. I'm just speculating why it would be good.
K-Rab is saying he thinks the King Queen looked a bit thin, but without the flush blocker, but seems reasonable. So definitely, one of those really cuspy spots where it's probably closer than it looks at first glance.
Makes sense. Thank you for tuning in is what my brain wanted to say, but thank you for chiming in with that, Crab.
Three-bet pot on the right. We see a check from Doug. And D-Negs with the 40%. If K-Rab says it is so. I mean, between me, Mike, and K-Rab, yeah, he's probably going to have the best opinion of the three of us.
Yeah, I'll take Crab's opinion versus me in heads up stuff. Unless it's specifically maybe how Doug approaches heads up stuff, but even then it's like 50-50.
Probably just better to just concede to him. I'll give you second and I'll take third happily.
All right, cool. Deal.
I know that they're GTA local. Nice.
Shout out to Lappin Poker in the chat as well. David Lappin, host of the Chip Race podcast. Good guy. He actually has been doing some commentating for us here on the stream, and he started writing tournament strategy articles for us on Upswing. So we're really appreciative of that. If you want to get those articles, like the ones I was talking about earlier, like the ones David is writing, and the other ones that we publish 2 free articles a week on Upswing Poker. If you want to get those emailed to you when they get published, go ahead and go to upswingpoker.com, click the free resources tab, and then pick one of the free resources and sign up for it. That's how you create an Upswing Poker account. Then once you have an account, you will get our newsletter 2 emails a week. Keep in mind, you are going to get some relatively aggressive email marketing at the beginning about our products, but you can ignore those. I promise it stops. But you get a good amount of them out of the gate. I just want you guys to know that. So, it's just so important to familiarize you guys with our product offerings. We're running a business over here. What'd you say, Ryan? Sorry.
I would recommend, like, you probably pitched this already, but if you've never played Heads Up, or even like, it's not just Heads Up stuff that applies to you, like blind versus blind play, like the wider range spots, I would actually strongly recommend taking Doug's Heads Up course, just because it allows you to think about poker from a heads up mindset. And that'll really help give you an edge, especially if you're playing like if you're newer to poker, probably a tough course to get involved in. But if you're trying to improve on your blind versus blind and late position play and just understand poker better, it really helped my game for that like small stretch that I did play heads up poker for. It makes you think about poker in a lot different light than you're used to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to hear. I mean, Dan Ott, the guy who got second in the main event a few years ago, has an amazing quote basically saying, if I didn't take Doug's Heads Up course, I doubt I would have run deep in the main. And yeah, that goes to show how much it can help sort of the other parts of your game as well. Wide range spots apply to a lot of spots in poker. Yeah. 4-bet from Doug on the right, call from Daniel. We have a deep 4-bet pot going down here. Potential for a 180k pot or so, a little less. This would not be a sleeve pot if my math is correct, but it's close.
This is a cooler spot flop too, where Doug's overpairs are pretty comfortable putting money in, and the board is not so well. He does check back, but the idea being the board is not so coordinated that it's always going to run out in a way that action slows down, but coordinated enough that both people are going to have a lot of equity. You'll build the pot as a result of that. But we do see a 4-bet and check. Obviously, Doug's still going to have some checkbacks that raise turns like this, and then he's going to have calls as well. So definitely could see some raises here, but we do see a call. King on the river, obviously, is going to be pretty good for Doug's range. He's going to 4-bet hands like ace-king, potentially like 4-bet a hand like king-queen sometimes, and check back for protection. Probably not a ton of that in this spot, but yeah, definitely has ace-king, has some slow-played hands, and then some just King X that now improve on the river.
Daniel does check to Doug. Doug now gets to decide if he wants to take a stab at this 34k pot. He does, to the tune of 23k, and it quickly gets through. He drags that 34k pot.
So he's cutting into D-Nags' lead on the right table. And he wins a small pot on the left with the 10-9 versus the 6-9.
This is really setting up nicely for a bloodbath, a potential bloodbath with these stacks. We got a nice potential for a 140k pot on the left and potential for a 210k pot on the right. So some crazy stuff could happen. Though that said, if you're a fan of Doug, you probably don't want them to play a big pot if the rest of the challenge has been an indicator, because Doug has lost 4 of the 5 biggest pots so far in this challenge. And if you go out to like the top 15 pots, Doug has won like 4 of them. So big pots certainly have been Daniel's forte in this challenge so far. We have a spreadsheet. We have a spreadsheet of the biggest pots. I'm gonna see right now what the specific stats are. Let's see.
Yeah, I was curious. What is the biggest pot thus far?
Biggest pot is 185k with Daniel winning it flush over flush, backdoor flush over flush, in a 3-bet pot, and then the second biggest pot also Daniel winning with Doug just blasting off with king high into 2-pair. Next one is Doug blasting off with a straight blocker into Daniel's nuts. Fourth one is Doug having a set, Daniel with the nut straight on the flop. So that was just, they're basically coolers or Doug bluffing. That's essentially what the big pots are. And then the fifth one is the biggest one. Doug has one where he hit a straight with 5-3 in a 3-bet pot versus Daniel's queens. Got it in with Daniel drawing dead on the turn. Yeah, we actually we've been gathering all this data for you guys. We're planning on, we might publicize the data just for your guys' reference, the timestamps to all the big pots, stuff like that. But the main thing we're going to do is we're going to use this data to make some really fun highlight videos for you guys. So maybe the biggest pots that Daniel's won, the biggest pots that Doug has won, the biggest bluffs that have been caught, the biggest overbets, things of that nature. We're working on videos like highlight videos like that. They're going to go up on the Upswing Poker channel on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, go over to the Upswing Poker YouTube channel, youtube.com/upswingpoker. Hit the subscribe button. We will have those coming soon. We're just finishing up putting up the highlights from Dylan Weissman, our PLO coach's 1,000 to 25,000 bankroll challenge. So once that challenge highlight situation is over, we're going to start putting up these challenge highlights. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Give the Upswing Poker channel your subscription if you are interested.
See after all these big pots going off, you see a pretty small pot on the right, just a little raise and take it from Doug. And a single raise pot on the left too. This board, obviously, you're going to see a lot of small betting from Doug. Very big card with two somewhat irrelevant low cards. Just going to be tough for Daniel to defend against a small bet, and we do see the roughly 40% size bet.
Justin Rock, wow, I leave for dinner and come back. Now so many buy-ins on the table. Damn right, man. Somehow we're close to even this session, but we've got about 600K on the table. Pretty crazy.
Do you know what the biggest stack either of them have ever had?
Yeah, Doug had a 400K one, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was 300K. It was so many sessions ago. Now I feel like I'm forgetting, and I just increased it by 100K. But man, I really think it was 400K. Chat, can you guys remember? Did Doug have a 400K stack at one point? I really think he did, because Daniel's definitely had 300K stacks, but I remember Doug having had the biggest stack of the challenge, and I thought it was 400K. Yeah, Ali Stare 4567 jumping in with the confirmation.
Yeah, yeah, a bunch of them. So
yeah, so 400K. So, yeah, it's been a bit, but yeah, there's been some big stacks in this challenge.
Yeah, we're set up now for some big pots on either table. We could have a 300 big blind pot on the left or a 400 big blind pot on the right. Now we just need the proper setups, whether that be coolers or based on what Mike said, setting up Doug for a triple barrel bluff that does not end well. We haven't had any triple barrel bluffs from Daniel in big pots then that have gone sour, where Doug's called him down, or he's been bluffing off, say, 200 big blinds or so.
Wow, Tangy Town 81 just gave me a good idea. He was kind of throwing some shade at Doug, saying that I'm sure Doug brags about having that 400K stack. I actually think Doug would not remember if we were to ask him. So let's find out. At the end of the session, I'm going to ask him, Doug, who has had the biggest stack of the challenge and how much was it? I would wager he does not know the answer and he's just going to guess, but we'll see.
Yeah, doesn't seem like something he'd care to keep track of.
Yeah, he's not the kind of guy that's going to keep track of how many times or what the sizes of his stacks or how many times his aces have been folded to or whatever.
Yeah.
Not Doug style.
If you asked him what's the biggest stack he's ever had in his career, yeah, he might know that thing. But in a specific challenge, he's probably not gonna. He's played these stakes so many times that doesn't really make a big difference to him.
Top pair for Daniel on the right drags a nice pot, which saw 2 bets go in post flop. Check on the river. Ooga says, "Get some scissors, Brady." Yeah, getting pretty relevant here.
What was the threshold for it?
Doug has to break the record for biggest pot of the challenge.
Okay.
And win it. So on the right table, if he won a 185K plus pot.
We can dream. It's gonna be tough for this pot to balloon into that one, but we'll wait for the next 4-bet pot. We see a very dynamic turn.
Big bet from Daniel on the left too. 15K into 22K.
Doug's in the tank.
Did you ask me? Oh, all in from Doug. Set of threes versus. Ooh, that's a sick cooler for 120K pot going Daniel's way. Brutal turn for Doug there. Daniel flopping the boat. Doug turning the lower boat.
It's a big pot, 120K right there.
Not going to show up on the all-in EV, but that is a bit of run bad from Doug there. Miles90 says, please answer Ryan's question about whether DNegs has triple-barreled any huge stacks as a bluff. Did you ask that?
Yeah. You were just in the middle of reading another question, so.
Oh, yeah, my mistake. Yeah, we have seen him do that at least a few times. The one that comes to mind immediately is he 3-bet 8-7 of diamonds. Then he bet jammed on queen 5-2 rainbow turn king river 10. So he had no equity at any point other than, I guess, the flop, right? But yeah, he ran that one. Doug called with top pair and a straight blocker.
Was that that was a big pot? Like over?
Yeah, Daniel jammed the river for like 46K into 30K, so 1.5x overbet. And they started the hand, what was it? What would it be, 150 blinds deep?
That's like for the less experienced poker players, when you get to those spots deep where you have to run those crazy big bluffs, that's where you really start to understand like how difficult it is to play deep stack poker. You have to be willing to sometimes just be ready to die with little to nothing, or just a strong misdraw, whatever it may be. See a interesting spot on the left where DNegs checks back with top pair. Top pair and 2-pair effectively.
Yeah, good kicker too. I mean, that's bizarre to me. That check back. I mean, only 1 bet went in post flop, right? Or no, 2 bets.
So yeah, kind of weird to have. We've seen some other spots where he's gone kind of thin and then kind of nittily checks back in a single raise spot there. So
yeah, what I've kind of noticed about Daniel's I've noticed Daniel does a lot of checking back even with hands that almost certainly worth a value bet, but they certainly don't want to get raised. So it's sort of, if you wanted to put a narrative on it, it's Daniel potentially being worried about getting put in tough spots by Doug's check raising and aggressive strategies like that.
Yep.
When we've seen him do a couple thin bets this session today, both of them were all-ins from Daniel, so there's no tough spot he could be put in because he's going all in himself. So I think that's likely sort of the difference is, as we see Doug 4-bet on the right to 10.8K. The difference is likely, when he is shoving himself, he does that a little lighter because he doesn't have to worry about getting into a tough spot. Whereas if he bets thin for value on that left hand that just happened, for example, he could still get put in a tough spot versus a raise. So that's why they're fundamentally different. So I suspect that's why Daniel's playing them differently.
Yep. 4-bet and half pot bet on the flop. This, if DNegs does call here, this pot could get big very quickly. It's gonna be 40K in the middle on the turn already. And he does make the call, brick turn, so this could be a big pot. The brick's not going to slow down any of Doug's value betting range, obviously, and then also he's going to have plenty of bluffs to attack this spot with. And then DNegs is going to have his own bluff catchers, and you see a pretty big bet from Doug, but he takes it down.
Yeah, if that bet got called, we would have had about 80K in the middle going into the river.
Yeah.
Would be pretty sick. Even more, actually, 90 or 100. But he takes it down. Yeah, my sleeves are certainly in jeopardy right now, guys. I admit that. I admit that.
Getting a little nervous there? That one could have done it, but
I like this shirt, but what are you gonna do? If Doug has to win 186k, if Doug gets to win 186k pot, I'm okay losing one shirt.
fair trade.
Yeah, very fair.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, so that could also lead to Daniel's decision where when he's out of position, shoving like the king queen makes his life easier than any other option, right? So the king queen, where we said it was kind of thin, where he shoves, if he's out of position, he doesn't have to worry about check calling because he can just shove himself, right? So that could also lead to the making his life easier decisions.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
The thing about the Jack 10 then becomes you can't sacrifice too much EV to make your life easier. So you have to figure out what is the EV of betting versus being too passive. We see a overbet on the left from DNegs. Big pot, 17k in the middle. Doug has to call 10k to win 27k. And he does fold. On the right, see a flush complete on the turn. And Doug is betting for the block size we've talked about a few times on this stream. River ace, you wouldn't expect too much blocking on this river, more like bigger sizes. So some like 2/3, 3/4, and then potentially overbets. We do see the 2/3. And now Daniel will obviously have some good hands to get here, and then obviously some bluff catchers as well. But depending on the exact hole cards, this could be a big pot. Nope, we just see a call, and Doug wins a pretty big pot there with a flush.
And this is crazy. They're like within 25k this session. And we've seen so much action.
Yeah, lots of all-ins, lots of like cooler spots. So
I mean, we're 350 blinds deep on the right, approximately. Yeah, 350 or so. On the left, we're 320, 330. Really, really deep. You could really see some fat ones.
Yeah. This is where stuff could get real. Super deep heads up poker gets pretty crazy pretty quickly. So
El Selly on Twitch, sorry to interrupt, Ryan, says this Ryan guy, as we see Doug check raise on the left. Ooh, and we have the 5 straight board. Now I'm going to have to wait to read what LC wants to say about this Ryan guy until this pot's over. 17k in the middle on the left.
And pot size bet from DNegs. Snap call ace king versus the jack 6. Wow. Pretty cool play there from Doug. And
yeah, tough run out for Doug there. Brutal. Check raises on the turn with the flush draw and the straight. Daniel with just 2 overs and a gutter bangs off the gutter. Doug then, of course, bluffs to try to take down the chop. Potential chop. No good with Daniel having the top end of the straight. Anyway, LC said, this Ryan guy is a born commentator. What kind of poker does he play? Ryan is a 500 NL Zoom regular, one of the toughest cash games that runs regularly in the world. And he streams it, so check out his Twitch streams if you're interested in sweating some of Ryan's action. There's not too many good cash game streamers on Twitch, guys, so you kind of got to take them where you can get them, and Ryan is one of them. So is Gazzy B, our other commentator that likes to hop on the streams. So yeah, go ahead and check out Poker with Risk on Twitch. Give him the follow. Get notified when he goes live with some cash game action.
Yep, there's also, and then YouTube stuff as well. So if you don't catch me live, I often post some like play and explains and stuff on YouTube. So
nice
content on both mediums. Someone just said something else, but lost it now. A lot going on right now. Pots are getting big. But yeah, the Jack 6 was pretty interesting, especially when DNegs bet calls turn with a bare gutter. Obviously 2 overs and a bare gutter. And just banks the, not the best card, but one of the best cards, makes it straight when only one of the flushes completes. And on the right, we see I just think a raise and a C bet. Turn pretty dynamic. We King 10 completes, bunch of 2 pairs and ace high flush draws as well. So you would expect to see some pretty big bets here from Doug if he does decide to bet, but he does check. And the ace pairs, pretty good run up for D-Negs when he check calls flop and the ace pairs twice. And he does go for the just over half pot size bet and takes it down.
Bit of a lull in the action. So we do see Daniel's turn probe on the left get called. Daniel sits out on the right.
But we don't see the dots yet.
No dots. He's usually pretty quick to put the dots as he block bets the left, so I think he's probably just taking a quick break. Tim Goglin says, who does the deeper stacks favor? I think there's a couple way to approach that answer, as Daniel gets paid with his bottom trips, or with his nut trips, I guess I should say, with that kicker. Oh, interesting. He didn't sit out. That's weird. But anyway, to answer Tim Koglin's question, who does the deeper stacks favor? I would think Doug, just because he's more of a studied player in general, so that he's going to have had more time to study deep stack play specifically. That said, if you maybe factor in side bets and stuff like that, which both players have side bets not against each other, but against other people on the challenge, maybe Daniel does want to be deeper because that allows him to win bigger pots and make up the deficit and potentially win his side bets, which he's likely getting 4-1 on. So, winning $1 in this challenge is very valuable for Daniel if he's able to book a $1 win after the 25,000th hand. So I think being deep helps him in that way because he gets to try to, there's more variance when you're deep, right? So it's more possible for him to make up 20-30% of what he's down in one session if they're deep. That said, when it comes to just the hand-by-hand EV on the table only, I think it's got to favor Doug, but hard to say for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you're behind, if you're behind and say you have a bit of if the other player has an edge on you, then yeah, upping the variance would have some appeal to Daniel, but obviously he has to be willing to play the deep pots appropriately. Like you can't just hope to make a good hand and hope Doug punts off into you. Like that's not how you're going to win it back. You have to kind of building pots yourself with like thinner equity, hoping to kind of win a big pot in a spot where maybe your hand wouldn't justify it, just to kind of catch up. So the longer this challenge goes, the more the more Daniel would want to play deep because he has less hands to catch up.
Exactly, yeah.
Someone asked, do I think that Daniel's not raising the nut straight was nitty? No, because Doug check raised turn and then potted river on a flush completing river. So even though he has the super nut straight, it's kind of hard to raise and get called by worse when the flush completes. So you could raise, but they're also kind of deep. So you're putting yourself in a pretty not comfortable spot. And we've seen Daniel in those spots, as we talked about, go kind of avoid putting himself in the really difficult spots, especially when there's a big, when they're really deep behind the actual pot. We see a pot building on the left. Pretty big bet here from Doug on the turn. Going to be 15K going to the river, and the 4 straight does complete. You can actually see some leads. I'm not exactly sure what the action was pre-flop, but D-Nice could consider leading this river sometimes if he thinks he has the 9x advantage. He does check.
Excuse me. It was a single raise pot, by the way, on the left.
Okay. And yeah, see, like this type of hand could sometimes fit into a lead on the river if you want to develop that strategy. He does check, and Doug checks back, and D-Nick still scoops a decent sized spot. So he just called there twice with a very strong draw, which is somewhat interesting. He just has queen high and a flush draw and a straight draw. Would make sense to check raise that hand, but he takes the passive route. So something for obviously Doug to note.
Grapes met Tom and Tim on YouTube asks, are there any advantages to sitting out of position? That reminds me of, I believe it was an old Gus Hansen quote, which is when you're out of position, you're the guy who gets to bluff first. So that's a fun way to think about it.
That's true.
But that said, Gus Hansen wasn't the most successful of the online players, so maybe not the guy who you want to listen to when it comes to that stuff. No disrespect to Gus Hansen, the guy's a legend. Any advantages to sitting out of position? It's a weird question. I mean, it's a disadvantageous position, so it's hard compared to the other ones. So it's hard for me to really say. You just have less information. But like I said, the sort of logic of you get to like bluff at the pot first, that's potentially a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah, like the only scenario it would be better than would be in short SPR spots, because then it's easy to like, whoever bluffs first, you don't leave the other person much room to rebluff you because there's not much money behind. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Very situational. So in general, no. If someone ever offers you to always play in position, I would take that 100% of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
See a check back on the left from Doug in a single raise pot, which would mean that Doug is employing probably a bigger bet size strategy on this flop with some checks, which makes a lot of sense on like the 10 high boards. As these boards get more like middling, where they're not as locked down, you're not going to use as many small bets. So we do see a probe from Daniel on the turn, and the king on the river again completes some straights, improve some of G-Neg's calls, and he does check back the 10-6, and Daniel goes for kind of a thin double barrel here with the Jack 9, basically targeting ace highs, hands like ace 5, worse 9x. So somewhat thin. Would have been interesting there if he gets raised, if Daniel is ever going to 3-bet the river with that hand, because that's the type of hand you want to block. Then sometimes when you get raised, it's a pretty good candidate to turn into a block 3-bet bluff. See a big bet from Doug on 8-7-4. Call in the turn 6. Another spot we talked about where Daniel could consider developing some leads on this turn. He does check, deciding to, potentially just because of the stack depth, or just he's not leading as a whole. He does check, and we see a half pot size from Doug. It's pretty cool. It definitely makes sense to have some smaller bets in this spot. You're basically like able to value it a bit wider, and like it's not like Daniel only has 5x in his range that you have to be super concerned on this turn. So once Daniel just calls turn, you could see again another half pot size bet from Doug, some sort of like smaller size to get value with his like say sets or 2 pair, and then a bigger bet to rep his 5x in hands like 10-9. So he goes for kind of like the middling size. And D-Nex is in the tank. So unless he's raising, he doesn't have a 5. He does call, and Doug has the 5-3, scoops a 20K pot. Question for Doug: what odds would he ask to play every hand out of position against Daniel? I would assume massive odds. Like that is basically impossible to offset that edge.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
He would need infinite odds. He just wouldn't take it probably. Like he could get, I feel like he could get like 1,000 to 1, and he still wouldn't take it, right? Unless it was like a 100-hand challenge or something silly like that.
Yeah, you'd have to find the perfect balance of shortness of the challenge and then amount of money he's laid to do it, right? So
right, yeah. 4-bet from Daniel on the right.
This could be a big pot if Doug makes the call. They are 300 big blinds deep here on the right. Very dynamic flop. Lots of cooler potential on this flop. And a 3-bet and very small bet from Doug on the left. See a call and 4 on the turn.
Couple chunky pots going down here.
They today started a bit slow, and now they're just building stacks on both tables, and pots are building. We see a pretty small bet from D-Negs on the right. Could definitely see some check raises, and we do. Big check raise.
Oh my god. My heart is beating so fast right now. We have the potential for a 280k pot if this gets all in.
You might have to grab those scissors while we wait.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? Interesting card on the left as well. Doug bets the turn, gets called, and then we get this 4 straight 3 flush river. Doug's check raise gets through.
Check
on
raise
the right table.
Sleeves for at least a little while longer.
Yep, sleeves remain intact. Daniel wins a 24k pot on the left, and Doug wins a 33k pot on the right. So Doug picked up about 5k in that little exchange. A lot of blood for very little result. Mike McDonald Poker subscribed at tier 1. Third month subscriber. Thank you, Timex, for the sub. Thanks again for joining us on Friday. That was good shit.
He was
also, yeah, sorry, what? Go on.
I was just gonna say he was rooting against the sleeve, saying 300k pot one time. He wanted to see you bust out the scissors and chop those things off.
I think most people in the chat are rooting against sleeves for sure, except for the people who might like have money on Daniel or something.
True.
But even the people passively rooting for Daniel, I mean, they want to see big pots too, so
yeah,
they'll take it. By the way, I forgot to give Tree Poker a shout out. He gifted some subs, 1 or 2 subs earlier, so thank you, Tree Poker, for that.
We're having some requests. Can we talk about lowering the standard we need for Mike to cut off his sleeves? I mean, the guy needs to keep his shirts. We can't just be having him cut them every stream, right? This is a nice little. When we hit that moment, it'll be even more enjoyable now.
I agree. I also want it to be worth it. Like, it's no secret I'm rooting for Doug, so I want it to be something like, I always wear shirts I like on stream. So if I'm going to cut a shirt I like, I at least want Doug to win a big pot before I do it. So
yeah,
we'll keep that for now. But, as the challenge goes on, maybe we'll lower it. Maybe we'll lower it to like 100k for one session. We'll call it like a sleeve flash sale.
Does that mean the quality of your shirts are also going to decrease over the length of the latter half of the challenge?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you guys.
Let's see a 3-bet on the left. These pots will get bigger too as they're deeper, because the deeper you are, the more ability you have to leverage position with some 4-bets, because the out of position player can't jam as much. So yeah, you can really put your opponent in difficult spots if they're not comfortable playing 4-bet pots, 300 big blinds deep out of position, which most people aren't. See a 3-bet on the left. King, Queen, 4 definitely going to be a good flop for Doug's range. But he does check. Definitely allowed. He can mix in some check raises here. He can just have hands like jacks and 10s that obviously don't really care about that much at this depth. You'll also see in a lot of these spots, the deeper you are, the less you can just get away with pure betting. So we see a 5 on the turn.
Well, apparently my webcam froze with a very evil look. I'm going to see if that fits right.
And Doug does delay c-bet and take it down. Ryan, what's your YouTube channel, mate? Like I said, if you want to find me anywhere, just type in Poker with Risk, all one word, and you'll find me. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, anything like that, you'll find me. It's not a very common channel name. See a 3-bet, small bet from Doug on the right, turn 6. Going to see, at this depth, Daniel could still block because they're deeper, and he's going to want to be able to value bet thinner. But on these king high textures, you still won't see that as much. So wouldn't be surprised to see some big bets and checks. We do see the check. And in Doug's shoes at this depth, I would expect some big bets for sure. He's going to have some hands that potentially slow play bet on flop and then want to pile money on the turn. But check. And now we have the river spot. Definitely a spot where D-Negs will have some blocks would make a lot of sense. If he has hands like queens, jacks, tens, could decide to, range bet flop, check turn, bet small on the river. He does check though, and now Doug has a decision. He's not going to have a ton of trips in this line, so it's kind of interesting to see. Yeah, I wouldn't expect like overbets or anything, but he does go for a pretty big value bet with the king jack and gets snapped by ace king, which again plays pretty passive in that line. Again, not looking for like the thin check raise or betting himself at any point. So yeah, definitely playing a bit passive, deep out of position is what it looks like.
Small C bet from Doug on the left in the 3-bet pot. King on the turn. Man, my camera keeps freezing. It's so mad at me.
Yeah, I think you got frozen again, Mike, in another great position. There you go.
Much better.
So on the king turn, Doug does check. All the spots where, again, I was going to say, I expect a lot of checks from Daniel because from what we've seen in the other spot, he's really afraid of playing, like, not afraid, I would say, but he's trying to avoid some of these really big pots deep. You saw the really passive play with the ace king on the right, checks back here. I don't expect him to be super weak in this line, as in I think he might have more king X than maybe he should. So he could obviously use some big bets now as a result of that. And he does go for the 75% pot size bet.
And does get through. Nobler than you. Are these guys coaches on Upswing, or it's the or? I'm the VP of Upswing Poker. I help with the curriculum for the courses, work with the coaches, manage the community, the marketing, etc. And Ryan is a friend of Upswing Poker, if you will.
I'm just here for the fun times, not affiliated. Can we settle for Ryan in a tank top for the next 4? I don't even think I have a tank top handy, so don't know if I can deliver on that. Could try and squeeze into one of the wife's tank tops, but not sure if I'm down for that for just a 4-bet pot.
Yeah, it happens a little too often. Doug with a nice hand to check raise the river with. I would bet that was going to be a river check raise should he face a bet.
It was king 2 for just king, like a weak king high, right?
No, it was bottom pair with flush blocker. Yeah, seems like a nice one in that spot.
Another person asking, I've had this in the chat a bunch tonight. Who are the toughest regs at 500? Again, these questions are so there's some like elite players in the world that everyone knows. Everyone else, if you're playing 500 Zoom as a regular game, you're a good opponent. So they're all tough. If they make money at 500 Zoom, they're a good poker player. They're in the top, whatever percent in the world at poker. So. See a pretty big bet, about 2/3 from Doug on the turn on the right. And flush complete river. Bit more difficult for Doug to value bet too thinly on this run out because now anything that isn't like king jack or king queen chops with all of even Daniel's king X. Flush completes, and Daniel should have some 4x in this line, but not a ton. We do see a big bet, so basically representing at least 2 pair, you would assume, as in king jack or king queen, but definitely some straights, flushes, and 4x could potentially still be in this line, but he does take it down.
I've got a D-Negs like bladder today. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. Even regular 500 Zoom players are good as someone saying, yeah, like if you play poker on the regular and make money at it, or even if you break even at poker, you're probably pretty good at poker. It's tough to win or make money or break even at poker. Tough game.
I need a shower.
Ryan, that's a boring answer. We want names. I don't like. The weird thing about it is it's hard for me to say who the best are because different it's almost like rock, paper, scissors. There's a bunch of good regs and certain play styles work well against others. So the guys who do well against me might not do so well against others, and the guys I do well against might do better against others. So it's kind of a wish-wash answer. But again, like I know like there's a bunch of good players. I don't know who the best players are. I don't know if there is a hands down best player in the pool. See a 3-bet and small bet from D-Negs on the left, which you will see a lot of betting on this board. Would expect a decent amount of checking from him on this turn.
Which thing?
Double flush draw, he's out of position. There's still a lot of money behind. So if we do see the check. And
Crazy session so far, man.
Doug is going to use a lot of like your sizes, I would assume.
I'm almost through, like 700K on the table. So
Lots
like
of
some pots.
check, river jack. On the right, Doug takes down a decent sized pot with 4. And D-Negs checks river, check. Ace 9 beats king 8. Raise and c-bet from D-Negs on the right. These are the boards where, especially now they're deeper, Doug can start using some check raises and really apply a lot of pressure, and you do see a check raise here. Because there's a lot of runouts, say turns like this, where Doug can continue to just like put lots of pressure on the big card range in D-Negs range. So you would see some big bets here, I would assume. He does go for the block size, which is interesting, to check raise and then block this turn. He could be setting up, a variety of things. Could be blocking to 3-bet if Daniel raises. Could just be, mixing this in with some strong hands as well. You can sense a Canadian accent. Do you notice a Canadian accent, Mike?
On a handful of words, like a little bit.
Yeah, I never even really think of it, but people like will say it every now and again. I kind of like, I don't notice it obviously, but people do mention it. So, and on the right, interesting spot where Doug checks river and Daniel goes for a block size on the 4 straight river. Say car, and we'll see. I said car. And wow, massive check raise here from Doug.
Wow, 65K over. What the hell? That's a huge check raise.
This is what I was talking about on turn. It looks like 5-7, where Doug, seeing the stack sizes, decided to go for the small size, hoping he gets some like thin raises and stuff so he can get the 3-bet in on the turn and really build the pot. Again, Doug doesn't play an exploit style. That's not the Doug style, but that's what it kind of looks like at first glance. You're setting up for a really big pot with a hand like 5-7. He can also obviously have bluffs here that just contain a 7, and he's trying to force D-Negs into a really uncomfortable spot. So he does take that one down with the massive check raise on the river. I was like Doug, Daniel bet 2.5K and Doug made it 65K. That's a misclick. I actually had a misclick like that the other day, where I meant to make it like I think I went to raise to 1250 and I made it 125. So that's always a good spot to be in. Let's see, 2 small C bets from Daniel. Sorry, both on paired boards. See a check raise on the right. Are we going to get the double check raise? No, just a call on the left. Turn king. Say about. I said about.
Yeah, that was a bit Canadian.
See, I don't. Well, how do you say it? Say about.
About.
So about. You say your T's a bit harder than mine. My wife's a speech pathologist, so she'll give me the lowdown later on what the difference is.
Yeah, I mean, well, the classic Canadian one that they use, like if you watch South Park, it would be a boot. Like it's basically a boot. I think that is a big exaggeration of how most Canadians say it. I think the way most Canadians say it, it's more like, I'd be interested to hear what your wife says, but I'm kind of just taking a stab at it, like about. It's almost like there's a W in there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's how I say like about. I basically say it like that too, right? Yeah. So.
Oh, another fat check raise from Doug.
Wow. So this is where Doug is really leveraging these big stack sizes and really putting Daniel in some uncomfortable spots. Like in this spot, Doug is gonna have. He's not really gonna have. I didn't see the flop size, but he's probably not gonna have deuces. But a hand like 6 deuce would make a lot of sense. So I know there's not many combos of that, but when Doug has 6 deuce suited, he's gonna check call flop a decent amount and then see this turn and love life because now he has a boat in a spot where he's not gonna have boats, but it's his weakest 6, so he'll call it more on the flop. So 4 flush river, when Doug makes the big check raise on the turn and we get this river, like shove is reasonable. And we do see shove. 133K. This is a massive pot.
Holy fuck, this is crazy. Like, even if you have the king of clubs in Daniel's spot, right? Like, this sucks. Like, it's pretty dirty. I mean, you got to call, right? But
yeah,
it's pretty. It feels pretty filthy.
This would be the biggest pot, right? If he calls.
No doubt. I mean, it's if you don't count, it's already arguably the biggest pot.
Yeah.
But it needs to be called because it's 194K right now.
And if he calls and has the 6 deuce and D-Negs has the just the king of clubs here, the sleeves are probably coming off for Mike. Deep in the tank. This is huge. And this is what we were talking about earlier, where when you get deep, you can really, no matter what Daniel has here, unless you've got pocket aces or pocket tens, you're not loving life. And we do see a fold from D-Negs, and Doug scoops a big pot. For you Redline fans, that's going to be a big boost in Doug's Redline. 20K pot on the left going to the river, and D-Negs now with a 2x pot overbet and a quick fold from Doug. Now, imagine how much his heart would be racing if he's bluffing. I wonder how much that is actually a thing for Doug. Three bet and small bet on the left on the ace 5-8. See, those are the spots where you guys are like, oh, I'd love to see hole cards and stuff, but like those spots are almost more entertaining not knowing what people have. Because if you know what they have, it's like you know what's going to happen. It's way more interesting to just see like these crazy stacks fly, and you just have to guess what does each person have.
Wow, one of the bigger Daniel fans that we've had consistently watching the stream throughout the challenge, shout out to Dankati on Twitch, says, that's why Daniel shouldn't play this deep. Just end these sessions. That is strong, coming from far and away the most consistent #1 Daniel supporter throughout the entire challenge. Like, that is strong, but even they are saying, hang it up, Daniel. Like, don't play this deep. Let's just book the win or the loss, in this case, win.
Yeah,
pretty funny. It's interesting to see that the stacks from early on in the session, when Doug had the big stack on the left, like 220K, and Daniel had the big stack on the right, about 250K. It's pretty much reversed now. Obviously, all 4 stacks are big, but Doug has the bigger stack on the right now. Daniel has the bigger stack on the left. It's the kind of stuff people watching tend to care about, so thought I'd point it out.
Yeah, it's definitely been an exciting session. Just lots of big pot. Like those check raises were crazy from Doug. Like, and those are the spots where not being confined to pot size is huge for like lesser experienced people. When Daniel made that 2.7K, Doug just made it 65K, like huge raise. But he just knows, like, I'm allowed to do this, and now Daniel has to figure out what to do against it.
For sure, and it's hard to know, right?
Yeah, that's what makes deep stack poker like fun, because A, people aren't as experienced with it, and B, it's not a simplified solved approach. You got to really, what is your opponent going to use in this line? What cards do I want to have? How often do I need to be right? There's a lot going through your head in that spot. Someone asked if I've been to Phil's or Pizza Maniac. If you're talking about Phil's in downtown Waterloo, yes, and that is one of the worst, most disgusting bars I've ever been in. But cheap drinks, so has its benefits. See a single raise pot, 994, pretty dry. Obviously, Daniel's been pretty persistent on betting small on these flops, which is pretty common. But we do see a check back and a big bet from Doug, and he takes it down.
Anders on YouTube says, damn, we need more deep stacks like this. This is sick. I agree, man. This is a much more exciting session than most of them. Far above average on the exciting level. My heart was pumping so hard when Doug put in that 100k bet. Like, Jesus. I feel like I was playing. What the hell's going on over here?
Well, how often do you get to put 100k in the river and it's an over bet for 2x pot?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Or even just reduce it to blinds. How often do you get to put 250 blinds in and it's an like, it's crazy. Miles90 says, do you think Doug might reveal what he had in some of these hands once the challenge is over, or is it giving away too much info for future opponents? I think there's a very good chance he will reveal certain hands at the end of the challenge. The main reason he's withholding is because he's playing one specific opponent, Daniel, who has a team of people studying Doug's play and coming up with counter strategies, stuff like that. So Doug has to be especially protective of the non-showdown hole cards during the challenge. But if he's not really going to play Daniel much in the future anyway, particularly not in a formal challenge like this, then I think there's a very good chance he'll reveal some cool stuff. There might even, I could totally see a fun Doug YouTube video, something along the lines of like the 5 hands from the challenge you want to see most or something like that, where he reveals 5 of the 5 or 10 or whatever of the hands that didn't go to showdown that you guys will be very interested in. He's told me a few of them after the sessions, and let me tell you, there have been some filthy ones that have went down. God, I wish I could share it with you guys, but unfortunately I can't. One of these days, maybe.
Especially if he was bluffing in that hand has to make the list. Like if he's got the 6-2, yeah, like it's still a crazy pot, but it's way crazier if he's just got the stone airball somehow in that run. So Big Steelers asking, how often do I get to put 250 big blinds in on the river? And I'm assuming you're asking that because earlier this week or last week, I shoved 200 big blinds against him on the river and flushed him for a monster pot. So thanks for that, Big Steeler. Not much you can do there, but it's the way the chips fall. See a 3-bet and C-bet small on the left. They're obviously very deep on both tables, so on this turn you could see some big bets from Doug, but being out of position, I was going to say, yeah, you might not see as many overbets. He does go for the pot size bet and takes it down.
Condolences to Lex Veldhouse. Apparently he just busted in the 6th spot in a tournament, as it happens in tournaments.
Most tournaments are sob stories, if you guys didn't know that.
For sure. It's hard for it to not be a sob story. Even when you get second, sometimes it's a bit of a sob story in a way. Though you'll have fewer shoulders that are willing to let you cry on them when you get second in the tournament.
Especially people outside of poker. Trying to tell someone outside of poker a sob story about a 6th place in a big tournament, good luck.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
Ryan, have you played against either? I feel like yes, like I've been at their tables in like tournaments occasionally. But yeah, I've never played cash against either of them.
Coincidentally, since we were talking about earlier, that 25k tournament that I played in however many years ago it was, 25k mixed max at the World Series, Daniel was on my first table. And I told the story on a previous stream, so bear with me for the people who already heard it. But as we see Doug 2x pot the river on the right in this check down pot. So I was at Daniel's table at the very beginning, and it's early WSOP tournament, so it's pretty fluid on people, the floors moving around, the people at their tables, and you're at a table for a minute, you might get moved to another one, you might even get moved to another one. It's all very in flux. And at the very beginning, there were maybe 5-6 people at my table, including Daniel and myself. And he somehow got out of me. This is how good he is at chats at the table. He somehow got out of me that I had a side bet against him that summer on, he had will Phil Ivey or I win a bracelet this summer prop bet, and I bet against him on that. He got that information out of me that I had bet against him through a friend. He also got out of me that I'm a professional poker player, or I was a professional poker player at the time. So I was going into it planning to tell him nothing, and yet he got both of those things out of me in probably 45 seconds. So you got to give Daniel's chat game, I can't imagine there are many people better than him at that. Like, he is next level at the sort of banter to get information that increases his EV and lowers yours.
Yeah.
Very good at it.
I respect the gamesmanship of being able to like take that and really make it part of your game, to just like hone that skill. And like obviously he knows he's good at it, so yeah.
Right, for sure. I mean, he's got to be top 0.5% at that. It's easy or higher. Like he's just incredible at it.
It helps being famous because people want to talk to you, right? If they know
right,
you're
of course.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Helmuth talks about that all the time, how he just basically fair catches punts constantly because people are like playing against Helmuth, so they do crazy stuff against him. And yeah, I think a lot of famous poker players benefit from that. People, because it's first, most people, if you're a random person playing a World Series poker tournament, you're playing a pot against random player A. You either win the pot and that's a win, or you lose the pot and that's a loss. But if you're playing a pot against Phil Helmuth or Dale Negreanu, or even someone like Doug, you either win the pot and that's a win. It's actually a double win because you beat a pro. Or you lose the pot and you get a story. So still a win in some people's mind. So it's basically like you get into these pots with these people, and certain people will basically think that they're win-win situations. So of course they're going to be the recipients of a lot of punts.
And some of them would rather bluff one of these guys than win the tournament anyways. Like if you could put either on your mantle, they'd rather be like, yeah, I bluffed Daniel Negreanu off this, or Helmuth off this, or whatever. Someone saying they just joined the stream, they're so deep. Yeah, it's been crazy. The past, it was a bit of a slower start. Wasn't much 4-bets for the past hour or so, but things really ramped up the past couple hours.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, man. I actually recommend maybe watching this one, since you just tuned in, maybe rewatching this one on YouTube at like 2x speed, maybe with no volume, so we don't sound like chipmunks. Unless you like chipmunks, then feel free. But watch this one at 2x speed. It has been a ride. There's been some crazy stuff. As you can see, we have nearly, what do we got on the table here? About 300K on the right table, 270K on the left, nearly 600K on the table, on both tables combined. Pretty crazy.
There's been some, and if you just tuned in, you missed the couple massive pots where both of them, Doug made some pretty enormous check raises, and in one spot, 2x pot shoved the river for 100,000 plus.
999 ELB says 2x speed commentary is hilarious. I highly recommend. I must sound ridiculous because I already talk relatively fast, so I must sound absolutely ridiculous.
Their random side note, I heard something where like I believe it's blind people, because their hearing becomes so honed in, they can listen to, I think the average person can listen to up to about 2 or 3x speed and understand it. And I think blind people can reach up to 6 or 7 times normal speech.
Really? That's an extremely interesting fact. Damn.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but something crazy like that where the speed they can listen at is just crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then it was a podcast I was listening to, and they played the 6x speed, and to us it sounds like nothing. Like it sounds like just the gibberish, right? But they can actually understand it. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Big
3-bet pot. Yeah, 3-bet pot on the left. Doug as the 3-better, and then he check called the flop. Chris Cook on YouTube. Mike, who would you like to see Doug play again in this format out of the big names? It's hard for me to not say Dan Bilzerian because I just think that would be so fun. and that's the one that people have been sort of talking about a little bit because Bilzerian sort of brought it up, though he wanted 20-1, which, like, imagine challenging someone and being like, yeah, I challenge you, but I need 20-1. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, any state, but 20-1.
But I need 20-1. Yeah. Beyond that, that's a good question. Let me think about it as we wait for this 13K pot to wrap up on the left, and maybe I'll have a good answer for you.
Hot size bet and a snap call. Wow. Pretty interesting pot. Like, definitely interesting to see Doug snap call river, and D-Negs finds, a hand that he's got to bluff sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. It's always interesting to see Doug make these snaps where it's certainly not fundamentally it's not a snap, but it's more indicative of Doug really knowing how he plans to play, and he's thinking, I have aces. This is going to be near the top of my range. So this is going to have to be a call for XYZ reasons. So if he bets, I'm going to call. So Daniel bets and he snap calls. And even though It's not a hand like, two pair, for example, or like bottom two pair or a low set or something like that would snap call there, and it's very clear snap call.
Yeah.
He still finds it with the aces. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, it's not the snap call that we think of, but it's the next hand down. It's the next like closest snap call, so he's already made his mind up.
Right, exactly. It is very similar to bottom two, basically.
Those are the worst when you're in Daniel's shoes and you're in the spot and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna pot this river. I'm gonna at least put him in a tough spot, and maybe he'll call sometimes, and the guy just snaps you on the river, and you're just like, what the hell was I doing? Like, if he's snap calling that hand, that bluff seems useless. But obviously in heads up, you're gonna have to run some crazy bluffs here and again.
Ooh, we got a mid-session Doug tweet from 5 minutes ago, quote unquote, from Doug. This has been the most wild, sick, crazy, swingy session of the entire challenge. All stacks on all tables are 85,000 plus, and we got a couple around 200K. Not stuff that you guys didn't know, but always fun to read out those Doug tweets that are happening mid-session.
Yeah. It's been, when they're in the midst of it and they're agreeing it's as crazy as we're seeing, then like that, it's just been a good session. See some similar sized bets on both tables, one an overbet and the other about 2/3, and a raise on the right. Check raise from Daniel. Again, they're pretty deep here, so this could end up being, if we see a call from Doug and we get an appropriate river, say like this river, this could be a spot that DNEG shovels all the money in. If you're check raising this turn, you get the deuce river, all in seems appropriate.
Yeah, could see 165K pot here. Should it go all in call? Shout out to Dan Smith, by the way. King Dan put out the tweet calling out this particular session. Ooh, Daniel with the check raise with the gut shot on the turn. Doug with just top pair. He decides to check back the river. Guess he's deciding that Daniel's a little bit too polarized on that turn. Doesn't really have any hands that's going to call a bet, other than ones that are, the nuts and have him beat and are going for a check raise. On the left, Daniel's going to pip Doug with third pair versus fourth pair. Oh yeah, so just really quickly, Dan Smith tweeted, if you are gonna watch the DNEGs versus Doug challenge one time, it's probably now. Both players super deep on both tables. And at MBradyCF, myself, killing it as usual. Thank you, Dan. Really means a lot coming from you.
But yeah, that was I think DNEGs has to give up with that hand on the river, so unfortunately we didn't get any like super sick spot. Yeah, when he's basically check raising that hand with its equity, and then I'm assuming he's going to run some crazy, 2x pot shoves with the ace of diamonds on some rivers as well.
Wait, someone's saying that Doug was tweeting about politics earlier in the session as well? Oh, no, that wasn't. What? Come on, man. He said he's going to move somewhere. You guys will make anything about politics. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. He said, I want to move from Nevada to another state with low income tax, and that's a politics tweet. Sure. What chance do we have here? What chance do we have for this divided?
Everything is a thing.
Everything is a thing. And I hate that phrase, a thing, but it's true. You're right. It's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah. If you can make something a thing, people will. See, again, the spot we've seen in the past where middle pair pairs and DNEGs is leading for min bet. And we've seen Doug, obviously do this a few times. The, like 2/3 size raise, 3/4 size, and he takes it down.
Oh, the person's clarifying. They were in the reply. Doug was in the replies somewhere. Huh.
Pot size bet on the left.
I still don't see the tweet you're talking about, bro, but I'll take your word for it.
And to call river queen, another spot where when you're using big bets on this turn, you get the queen river. Your bets on this river should probably be at least 15K plus. But he does go for 10, just pot again. This is obviously fine as well, but you think once you get this brick of a river, whatever nut-ish hand you had on the turn is, really the nuts on this river. You would expect some bigger bets, but he does go for just the pot size bet. Maybe we'll see another 65K check raise from Doug. You can dare to dream, right?
Dare to dream.
We do usually see a call. Wow, pretty thin from DNEGS and pretty good. It gets max value there with the kings. Pot, turn, pot, river. Pretty, we've seen him go kind of thin in some spots. That one seems a bit more appropriate than maybe some of the other shoves that are a bit more cuspy. Do I play any televised events? I do not. Like Mike has mentioned, I stream a bit on Twitch from here and like now and again, and then I do some YouTube content. But no, I've not played any live. I've come close in some like live. I haven't played many, but a few like live 1Ks and stuff that would have been televised if I made it. But final two table is as close as I've been. See a block on the left and take it down, and a 33K pot Bruin on the right. Another spot where when bets going on this river, big bets would be very appropriate. Deuce is a complete brick. And we do see the shove. And Daniel folds. This is crazy. On the right, at one point, DNEGS had 230K and Doug had 40K, and they have basically completely swapped roles now.
Actually, not to overly correct you, but it's a key threshold. I actually am quite sure Daniel was over $250,000 there at one point. So I remember saying $250,000. So yeah, it's like a direct swap. Like DNEGS had 250 at one point, Doug had 40, and then they've swapped it. But at the same time on the left, Doug had about 230 to 40, and now that's much closer. So not quite as devastating as it looks based on that right table, as we see Daniel check raise the turn on the left. Gets the fold. Shout out to David Lappin. Thank you for the tweet, bro. Promoting the stream. Very exciting stuff today with these big stacks. Most viewers we've had in a little while. So apparently you guys heard that the big pots are happening.
The Doug tweet maybe caught some traction. The 400K at the tables might have caught some traction.
Yeah, it's kind of a bottom up bubbling too, because we had Dan Smith tweet about it, David Lappin's tweeting about it. I'm sure other people are tweeting about it that aren't tagging me that I'm not seeing. So yeah, it's kind of word of mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
Perhaps also some of the tournament players who are streaming on Sunday wrapped up their sessions after busting everything, and now their viewers are joining us. I could see that being part of it too.
It's a good one to hop into. It's been pretty crazy.
Sorry, it's not Sunday, but they might be playing day twos from Sunday is what I was thinking. I know it's not Sunday, guys. I apologize for that.
You're giving us poker players a bad rap. We never know what day it is.
Chris Cook, Mike, I can't find you on Twitter. I'm at MBradyCF. CF as in center field because I played sports ball as a kid. Third pot bet from Doug on the left.
Maybe DNEGS has one of the big check raises in his arsenal.
Robert Villanueva says, Mike, get another. Oh, he does. Wow, good call. Robert said, Mike, get another drink, and Ryan, get another drink. Way ahead of you, man. I'm on drink 2. Call from Doug. Holy shit.
If this all-in gets called, I'm grabbing another drink.
This would be the record for biggest pot if it's an all-in call here, and I would have to cut my sleeves if Doug won it.
Ryan, what are the big leaks in both players' games? Doug is a way better heads-up player than me. I'm not going to try and assess his leaks. Wow. And big pot. Daniel does give up with the ace-king.
My sleeves are safe for now. Doug drags an 83K pot there.
Now, if I mean, DNEGS has a pretty bad hand to shove river with, but would have been interesting if he shoves and Doug finds the hero call there. almost like a frustration shove from Daniel if he does make it. We do see Daniel sitting out. Don't see the dots yet, though.
Wayne, we do see the dots. Yep, there are the dots. It's going to be the session, guys. D-Neg's going to call it a day. Wayne Seals, wouldn't it be a good strategy for Doug to stop this session since he has a big lead overall and the stacks are huge? For the side bet, you're absolutely right. Doug should not want to play deep. That said, knowing Doug, not even remotely going through his mind. He's happy to play deep, take the plus EV spots every hand, playing a player that he believes has an inferior strategy. That's just kind of how Doug is. He's not going to be super concerned about the sort of side bet stuff until it really gets close to the end. You know, if Doug's up 200K with 1,000 hands to play, certainly going to impact his play. But this early, with still 8,000 hands to play, he's still going to try to play his most plus EV game. And that's kind of just how Doug approaches poker. All right, guys, that's all the play for today. Doug with a very good last few minutes there, going from about minus 30K to about plus 75K, and not too much time at all.
Definitely of the streams I've done, that was by far the craziest. Like some of those check raises and pots just ballooned out of nowhere.
I cannot wait to hear Doug's thoughts on some of these hands.
Yeah, this is the one where this is the session you don't need many questions for him because he's going to have so much to talk about just in sheer magnitude of those pots. But having said that, if you guys have any questions, make sure you got them in, send them in now. You know, tweet at Mike.
Yeah, please do. We got a few questions. We have that one where there was one hand we wanted to talk about where Daniel shoved the river with top pair Queen 6 of clubs versus Doug's Ace Queen, and Doug just like snapped. Mm-hmm. Seemed like Daniel jammed a little too light there, perhaps. Not sure though. Just speculating. The other questions we have for him: what has been the biggest stack of the challenge? That's just kind of a little test for Doug to see if he recalls what the biggest stack was, which I suspect he will not. We also have a question from someone who tweeted this at me. If you can believe this, they tweeted this at me multiple times and have probably put it in the chat 2-3 dozen times. Marlo asked, what is your favorite kind of jam for toast? Very important to them that I ask that, so I will be asking. The other questions we have: will Doug go into detail of what his strategy was for the match, what worked, what didn't work when the match is completed? I'll be asking him that. Does he golf, and would he do a side bet versus Daniel at golf? I might rephrase that question to just like, what is your experience and skill level in golf, so he could sort of be a little more open-ended. Next question: what is he doing now that he is effectively retired from poker? Is he just enjoying retirement? Next one: is there anything that Doug realized that he missed about poker when he started playing this match? I'm pretty interested in his answer to that one. I could see him missing nothing, but I could also see him having an answer. And then regarding your recent tweet, you're being Doug, why do you want to leave Nevada down the line? So we have a good amount of questions for him already, but if you guys have any more, feel free to tweet them at me at MBDCF or at Ryan at Poker with Risk, or just drop them in the chat, question for Doug, then your question, and then I will see it. No promises on me asking because we already have quite a bit, but if you have a really good one, I will write it down at least for next time. Maybe we'll run out of time today, but I like to save some questions for the next session as well, so that might happen. Usually takes Doug a few minutes to get with us. Guys got it prepared, make some notes maybe. Whatever high stakes poker players do after they win $75,000, he's got to do all that. Definitely a nice comeback from Doug today. He was down about. Do you remember what his trough was today, Ryan? Approximately.
What Doug was down at his peak.
His reverse of peak, yeah.
Valley.
Yeah.
I didn't have the stream up, so I wasn't watching what they were tracking, right? So
I think it was like 70. I think he was down 70 at one point, and Jimmy's in there saying it was 75 or 80. So yeah, solid little 150K swing in Doug's direction in the last hour or so there. So very good for Doug. If that number is right, that's going to bring his overall lead on the challenge to about 700K. Pretty solid cushion with just about 7,000 hands to be played. And that beep can only mean one thing. We are joined by Doug Polk. How you doing, Doug?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Let me set this up real quick. Okay, webcam's working. Think we're good to go. How's the stream?
Dude, that was a fun one. That was great. If you could try to have sessions like that every time, I would really appreciate it as the host of the stream.
You know, if I could have winning sessions every time, I would do that. That sounds good to me.
If you didn't know, they're a big fan of the $65,000 check raise. The massive check raises. The fans they're a big fan of that one.
That's sweet.
That spot is really interesting because when you bet the size I bet on the turn and he doesn't raise, he's just very rarely going to have 7-5. So I'm interested if jam is better than 300% or 400% or whatever I did there. But either way, I think you can really aggressively go after him in that spot, and I think he's going to be in a kind of tough spot. And you can check raise 7-5 and then some fives and then occasionally some air balls, and yeah, puts him in a really tough spot.
What was the total today?
So we won 73K today. So pretty solid session. We were also at one point we were down, I don't know, 100 or something, I think.
Right.
So it was
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a pretty solid comeback.
Yeah,
It's weird. It's weird when we get deep because on one hand, we're getting to the point in the challenge where it's definitely good for him to be deep because it ups the variance to have really big pots. But on the other hand, I feel very good about my deep game. I've put a good amount of time and effort into that. So I don't know. I feel it's I think my win rate goes up deep, but variance goes up. So there's some real trade-offs. I think at the moment though, it's good. It's good for me.
We had some people asking, like, is this? I think this was what Ryan was about to say. We had some people asking, is this advantageous for Doug to play deep? Should he actually be quitting because of side bets and all that stuff? I sort of gave them what I assume your answer is, which is maybe, but I'm just gonna play.
Well, we also agreed that we would play 2 hours plus no matter what. So, and we talked about playing deep early on in the challenge, and we said we were not going to restart tables and stuff. So, you know, maybe if it gets to a point where the side bets are more in play, if we have played over 2 hours, maybe I'd consider quitting a session if I thought that a stack would really hurt my ability to win the challenge. It's just something that it would be within the rules to do. But I don't think it's going to come to that because if we're not within 10 buy-ins, 5 buy-ins, I just don't really see the chance of me winning changing by enough to not want to play deep when I think that deep is good for me overall. Because deep gets pretty crazy in some spots, and you have to be willing to sometimes pull the trigger for a lot of money. I don't know if that's something that he's necessarily used to doing, not in terms of just raw dollar amount. I'm sure he's run some big bluffs in his day, but in terms of big blinds, it feels a bit tough, I think, for some players to run bluffs that are 200 or 300 blinds deep, and you have to sometimes be willing to do that. And then also sometimes you have to be willing to make some calls that don't feel great to make. So should we run through some hands?
Yeah, fire through it. We are just, as you're running through those hands, I'm going to be gathering reports from the chat on DNeg's interview, which is happening right now, which is apparently quite feisty. So I'll get some info. You are apparently the luckiest player ever. But besides that, let's put that aside. I'm going to try to see if.
Well, let me tell you about the biggest pot ever. Or the biggest pot of the session. Sorry. I open pocket threes. He 3-bets. I call. Ace 10. We're 1.5 blinds deep. He bets, I call, and me, being the luckiest player of all time, hit a 3 on the turn. Boat on the turn. How lucky is that? There's only two threes in the deck, Mike. 2 3s in the deck, and I hit one. So fucking lucky. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable how lucky that is. What's the chance of a boat in the turn there? Anyway, he bets, I call. River is a deuce. He bets again, and he hasn't taken this line off in this challenge. So I felt a little scary, but I have a boat. and I go all in with my luck box boat, and he has ace 10 for the nuts, the top boat. But I think the real thing we can take away here is we need a YouTube video on how goddamn good Doug is at hitting boats. That's really the most important thing here.
You hit a 2 outer, 2
Sick.
on the
So
turn.
sick.
You needed a 3 on the turn, and there's only 2 of those, and yet it came. So
unbelievable. Lucky. So lucky. Anyway, then we had ace king all in pre against jacks, and I hit an ace. Such lucky stuff. You know, unbelievable. I also got ace king all in against tens and didn't get there, but I think we need to focus more on the one that I did. And it's not that fair that I had ace king against jacks and a king and an ace came. It's fucked up.
Yeah,
isn't that fucked up?
Especially because it was on the turn. It's just like
that's even sicker.
Yeah,
there's only one card on the turn. Did you know that, Mike? There's 3 on the flop, 1 on the turn. What's the chance? And by the way, I'm seeing a pattern here, Mike. 3 on the turn, ace on the turn. I seem to get really lucky on the turn. That's where I'm sensing good vibes on the turn.
So you're positing that you're a turn luck box.
Yeah, and then the other one, the ace king versus tens, you know, he held, but he got in ahead. So that's just standard. And then this is some classic luck box shit. Ace king versus jacks and ace comes. Unbelievable. Anyway, we have a hand where I open queen 9. We're very deep in this hand. We were 2.5 blinds deep. I open queen 9. He 3-bets. I call. Queen 4 deuce, 2 spades. He bets 2/3 pot on the flop. I call. The turn's an 8. He checks. I bet 1/3 pot on the turn. Small bet. He check raises big.
It's like 36K or something like that, right?
34K, yeah. I'm starting to feel scared, but on the other hand, also have top pair. I call. The river is a 10. And it's the kind of spot where if he does jam, I think I'm probably going to get stacked with the queen 9. And I'm praying, please don't stack me with the whatever. And he checks. And I check back, and he has ace king of spades. And again, how lucky is that? You know,
he could have hit a spade and he didn't.
He could have hit a flush or an ace or a king. It's just this is just vintage. I mean, this is 3 lucky hands now. 4, kind of. You know, these are just 4 lucky hands in a row. When will it end?
When will it end?
Then we have a hand. I open ace 9. He 3-bets ace 5 suited. Ace 7 2. All right. So I'm ahead for now, but I'm sure I'll get lucky somewhere. He bets small on the flop. I call. Turn 4. Another lucky turn for me. I'm still ahead.
I'm disgusted by how lucky you've been getting.
It's unbelievable. Turn. I bet 2/3 when checked too. He calls. So 29K in the pot, 26K behind. And I get the lucky 3 on the river that gives him a straight. But the reason it's lucky is now I get to play a big pot. How lucky is that?
Pretty lucky.
I jam top pair, like with the luck box I am, and he calls with a straight and wins 40K. Another lucky hand. I think frankly, it's just disgusting how lucky I got in this hand. Sick. It's just sick. The next hand, I open pocket 6s. He 3-bets 10s. 8 7 6. Very lucky flop. This is 9 lucky hands now, I think. He checks. I bet very small. He check raises massive, which I'm sure is.
I know you're going through it quickly, but we actually were wondering about that. What do you think of his check raise here for that size?
Well, I think it's very unlikely it's balanced.
That's what we said.
And I think it's very likely that he has a value bet and is trying to stack me.
It's hard to stack 6s though.
He likes to have a flop raise strategy in 3-bet pots of big for value and small polar, mainly bluffy. Because the thing is, when you raise small, you risk less to win the same amount. This is advanced poker tips. Probably in the Negreanu masterclass. Anyway, I jam. He calls pocket 10s disgusting. And of course, the luck box that I fucking am hold with my set. Unbelievable. Another lucky hand. Just put that down. 8 or 9 of them at this point. Oh, this hand is disgusting how lucky it is. Are you ready? This is the luckiest hand of the session. He opens queen 6 suited. I 3-bet ace queen suited. Already so fucking filthy how lucky that is. Can you imagine having the higher kicker? Disgusting. Anyway, he calls. Has to call. Jack 5-3 flush draw. A disgustingly lucky flop. I bet. At this point, he's got the backdoor flush draw. It's a cooler setup. He does call. Queen on the turn. Boom! Lucky turn once again. Flush gets in, even luckier. Neither one of us has a spade. His fate is sealed. I bet small. He calls. River is an 8. And I decide to slow down here with the queen and check it over to him. His hand plays itself. What's he supposed to do? Check back with a queen here? Of course not. You have to jam and get value from, I'm not sure. Maybe ace jack.
That answers our question.
But maybe ace jack, you know, it's just disgusting. That's just it's just an unbelievably lucky hand. What's the chance of a flush hitting and neither player having it? Unbelievable. It's just so fucking lucky.
Yeah.
He has no choice. He's going to have to get stacked there. There's nothing he can do.
In all seriousness, just to take a break from this amazing stuff, do you think do you check back in Daniel's shoes there with the queen 6 of clubs, turn top pair?
Well, turn he called.
Yeah, river.
He played it fine.
Oh, so you do jam river as Daniel?
No,
you like
no, of course not. Of course not. It's obviously a check. Yeah.
Oh, it's a check. Okay. I was wondering if it could maybe. It just didn't make sense.
It's just
maybe smaller size, but eh.
And no, it's just a check.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Especially if you know how lucky I am, right? Because then you know you have to factor that in. You have to factor how lucky. It's been unbelievable just how lucky that one is. And then, oh my god, this hand was disgusting. You want to hear another disgusting hand? I threw bet 8. Did I play it? Queen 4-3. I threw bet he calls. Queen 4-3. I have 8-7. He has 10-6. This is another cooler setup I've ever seen one in my life. I bet small. He calls. Just sick. Turn 7. Second pair. Obviously another turn for Doug. As we've seen, all of these turns. Another one for Doug. I check. He bluffs. I call. River, deuce. The perfect card. I check. He bets 2/3 pot. I call, and he has the 10-6 for 10 high. Another lucky hand. You can't. Oh, let me tell you some more lucky hands. This one might have been the luckiest one of the night. He opens. I call Jack 6 of spades. A lucky ass hand if I've ever seen one. Queen 10-9, 2 spades. What a flop. I check. He bets small. I call. Turns an 8, creating 2 flush draws. I have a flush and a straight. The luckiest turn once again. We're just so good at these turns. I check. He bets half pot. I decide to check raise him. Pretty solid size. Pretty solid size check raise here on the turn. He makes the call. River jack. So the board's straight. Backdoor flush gets there. I pot it, trying to get him off chops. And he calls. What a lucky river for me. He had ace king. Ace king off. I win on every river other than that lucky jack. The only river I would lose on is the lucky jack that I hit once again, and I lose a 50K pot. I mean, what's the chance of that in the river? Do you realize how lucky that river is for me?
Very.
Unbelievable. What's the chance of that river? What's the chance of the jack on the river there? And it wasn't even offsuit. He couldn't even jam for value. Sick. Fucking disgusting.
Disgusting.
It's hard to watch these, Mike. It's hard to watch looking back and realizing how lucky that I am.
You're telling me. I've watched every hand.
Oh.
I've been sickened watching how lucky he is.
Oh, and let me tell you another lucky hand that another classic Doug hand. I threw bet the aces. And he calls because I'm just so lucky. 10-9-6, 2 spades. A lucky flop for aces if I've ever seen one. I check. He bets small. I call. Turn 3. Again, Mike. Lucky turn. Check. He checks back. River 8. Check. He bets the pot. I call. Queen 5 of spades. Missed flush draw. How lucky is that? No flush for him. Sick.
He never bluffs, and yet you caught him bluffing. That's very lucky.
Also, he didn't hit a flush against aces. What's the chance of that? Could someone put that in your calculator? What's the chance of not hitting a flush against aces? Because that has to be 1 in a million. I don't know how. There's just so many other lucky hands. It's just hard to really go through all of them. But yeah, it's just a lot of lucky hands for me today. You know, I'm just thankful. I'm just thanking my lucky stars to get to be this lucky.
The chat apparently via DNegs is letting us know what DNegs had in that hand where you bet 100k into, what was it, 50 or 55k on the river after check raising big on the turn. He had Queen Jack of clubs. So he had a turned flush. River was a 4 flush, I believe. Ace of clubs, right? And then that's when you jammed for 100k.
So lucky.
So lucky. It would be so ironic. Not that you would reveal this, but it would be so ironic if you had a boat there and that 4th club on the river cost you the big stacking that you would have had. That would just be so good. But
it would still be lucky, because how lucky is it to hit a boat?
That's true. That's true.
You have to think of that, right?
Yeah, of course.
You have to remember, it was lucky either way, Mike. It was just lucky.
My mistake.
I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to have to throw the luck thing to the side, because apparently all we're going to talk about this whole challenge is luck. Can I be honest here? I think Daniel, I've played a lot of heads up in my life. I think that he has run one of the hottest of any opponent I've ever played in my entire life. One of the hottest. I don't even think it's remotely close. I've had kings versus aces 3 times this challenge. I get stacked all over the place everywhere. I'm always in a shit spot. Most of the big pots I win are me making it like a hero call that's really tough, or it's a bluff I get through, tons of those, or it's me just bobbing and weaving, and then I have a good hand, boom, boat over boat. The amount of luck Negreanu has had this challenge is so funny that his perception is completely warped. In his mind, the reason that he's getting unlucky is because when he loses, it feels unlucky. But that's because I have the edge. He has run unbelievably hot this challenge. Unbelievably hot. I bet you if we put it on non-showdown, I bet you I've won $1 to $1.5 million in non-showdown this challenge. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm up 30 or 40 buy-ins in non-showdown. And yet, in the big pots, and obviously part of non-showdown is I will be more likely to lose the big pots, he's just turbo stomping me. And then he gets aces in versus kings. I had a king and talks about his all-in EV. Bro, that pot is going the same way either way. It doesn't matter. You know, and that's not to take away from the improvements that he's made. But to only be down what he's down now, to have his all-in EV be what it is, he's been impossibly lucky. He's probably in his top 10% of runs right now. He just doesn't even realize it. If I was going through his run, he would be decimated. Just absolutely decimated. There would be nothing left. It's just so silly. I've not played any heads-up players where it's been this brutal for this many hands. I've just not. I just don't have value bets against him. I just bluff this guy and get him to fold, and then I get stacked when I have a hand. It just happens over and over again. It's unbelievable. And this whole narrative, frankly, is fucking stupid. Let's talk about luck again today. He got so lucky. I made a flush. Look at all these flushes. There's a video of all these flushes he made. It was one. It was one flush. He was so lucky. What the fuck, man? This is 200, 400, okay? 100K is nothing. You get stacked all the time in heads up. I went through a stretch where I didn't stack him for 2K hands. I've never heard of anything like that in my entire life. 2K hands, no stackings. That's not even a fucking thing. And then I have to go on and listen to Negreanu. I ran so bad. I ran so bad. I'm running so bad. And the GG poker commentators are like, there, Negreanu. Yes, you have been running bad. You've been running bad, Mr. Negreanu. We're so sorry about it. Fuck's sake, man. What the fuck is this narrative? I mean, come on. You're in the mix. I respect that. You've done a bunch of stuff better. I respect that. He's getting better every day. But this whole, we're going to just bitch about luck every session, it sounds like you're a 1-2 fish when you do this. This is what fishes do at 1-2. They talk about bad beats. How long are we going to do this for? I'm up 700K or whatever now. And do you think that that's a coincidence? You think it's a coincidence you got, quote, really unlucky for all of these hands? Did you think this was a flip? Did you think this was even money? Anyone can win. It's heads up. Cards come out. Oh no, lucky cards for Doug. Ah! Like, what the fuck is this? Honestly, it's so dumb. Honestly, if any actual like heads up reg did that shit versus me, I would tell them to grow up. Imagine you're battling someone at 1 or 200, a heads up reg, back and forth. He loses 10 buy-ins and says, "I just can't believe how lucky you are." You would show that to your friends. But can you believe this guy? This is embarrassing. Embarrassing. Imagine losing 10 buy-ins. And then I win 1.8 buy-ins today. 1.8! Not even 2 buy-ins! And I'm the luckiest man that's ever lived! I don't understand! It's not even 2 buy-ins! I won not even 2 buy-ins today! I won 1.8 buy-ins! Oh my god! I just can't take the pain anymore! I just can't take the pain! Oh, I tried to be so nice about this, and I have plenty of actually really good things to say. I've tried to just ignore the luck conversation because I don't want to get into it and say things like this because I do have a lot of good things to say about Negreanu now. I do, but man, can we just stop with this shit? It's pathetic at this point.
Well, whoever just said in chat, and like whoever put in chat, Daniel said Doug is the luckiest player ever that session. It was like you took a grenade, you pulled the pin out, you dropped it in Doug's studio there, and then it went off. That was a good
1.8 buy-ins. 1.8. I didn't even win 2 buy-ins. I won 1.8. You know, if I had won 3 buy-ins, I might as well call up the California lottery and ask for my money. I mean, that's not even possible from what I've heard. I got boat over boated for the biggest pot this session. Boat over boated. I got boat over boated, and then the luckiest guy, lucky turn, lucky Doug, hits the 3 on the turn. Oh my lord. Good times in the heads up streets.
Yeah, it's been a long time since you streamed, so I bet it felt good to get that kind of thing out, did it?
Eh. What are the lucky ass hands did we have today? Oh, so lucky. Oh, this hand was disgusting. You want to hear a lucky hand? So lucky.
Yep. You know it.
We open queen 10. He 3-bets. I call. Already lucky. You can just feel it in the air. Jack 9-5 with a flush draw. He bets 40%. I call. Turn jack. A lucky turn. Pairs the jack. I have the straight draw. Queen and a 10, both very close to a jack. Super lucky. He bets 2/3. I call. River, deuce. Luckiest river in the deck. He jams. He checks. I jam and he folds. So lucky. That luck has been there all challenge. It's constantly been there. Disgustingly lucky. What's the chance of that river?
And then him folding.
Did you know there's only 1 deuce of spades in the deck? What's the chance of that coming on the river? It's got to be 1 in a million. It's got to be 1 in a million. There's no other. Okay. It's a 50-50. Either you get there or you don't. And I got there. Deuce of spades.
Any more hands? Should we drop? Man, that was a ride. Let me tell you, this session was a ride. Session was a ride, but that was a ride. Like arguably more of a ride. Ryan, what do you think? Do you think the session was more of a ride, or what we just went through with Doug?
That was somehow spicier than the 65K check raise.
Tough to do.
Do we want to talk about hands? I feel apathetic on that front. I feel we've talked about enough hands.
Yeah, that was quite a bit of hands.
Okay, that was too many. Cliff notes. Every hand was lucky. There were turns that came out, and those were obviously lucky because they were turns and I was in the hand. And then a lot of lucky rivers as well.
Just the kind of stuff you'd expect from Dougie P. All right, so now we got our rapid fire questions that we're ready for that aren't usually so rapid. Here's the first one. I was pretty interested if you get this one right. What has been the biggest stack of the challenge? This is more of a quiz question than like an interview question. What has been the biggest stack of the challenge, and who had it?
I think I had a 300K stack once.
Awesome.
Oh, no.
You don't even.
Wait, Was it more than that? 340, 340, I think.
All right, so to whoever said Doug has been bragging about having the only 400k stack, you were wrong. He didn't even know he had the only 400k stack, so knew it. I was 100% sure you would not even have been aware of who had the biggest stack.
That would be a
so-
really weird brag. Yo, I had such a big stack that one day. I won over 1.8 buy-ins.
Amazing.
Oh,
All right.
man.
Next one, this person, you won't believe, this person has probably asked this question in chat and on Twitter 40 plus times. You will not believe that fact based on what the question is, but I just have to give it to them based on their sort of dedication to getting the answer.
Okay.
What is your, this is from Marlo on Twitter, what is your favorite kind of jam for toast? It's really important to me, please.
I don't like jam.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like jam. I don't like fruit.
Doesn't like fruit.
Mm-mm.
All right. That's a weird take.
I hope that was worth the 40 questions.
Yeah, yeah. They don't even get an answer. They were asking because it was the only jam.
I also don't
they-
eat toast. I don't eat toast or jam.
Right, just in theory though, what jam would you use? I suppose, but
If I
guess
did,
not.
it would be a lucky jam though. I'll tell you
That's
that much.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Will Doug go into detail of what his strategy was for the match, what worked, what didn't work when the match is completed?
I've been thinking about this, what I'm going to do with the content after this, because I'm obviously going to have, I don't even know how many hours of play, and I could do some kind of coaching or course, and I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to put something in the lab for sure. We'll do some kind of heads up, something in the lab. I might do something more in depth on this challenge specifically as a standalone course. I'm not sure about that right now, but I'm definitely going to put at least some content with some hands that people can see. They're not available anywhere in the lab for our members, and do a bit of heads up coaching in the lab. I know our members would love that, so I'm going to do some of that. Other than that, I haven't totally decided the plan yet. So I'm weighing my options. In the next couple of weeks, I'll make a decision.
Sounds good. Ryan, do you have any questions by chance written down or anything?
No, it was mainly those crazy hands, but he went over how lucky he got in all of them, so I think we got him covered.
Cool, perfect. So I'll dive into the last four we got. All right, Doug, what is your experience level in golf, and would you be willing to play golf against Daniel for money?
I have golfed for the first time in a very long time recently, and it was just driving range. So I'm nowhere even close to near being able to golf for money. Not even close. I haven't played a hole of golf in years, and when I did, I played a few times. So definitely not. But you know, if I go out there and practice, I start to feel I'm hitting some balls, I'm not inherently against it. I'm a man who's willing to wager, and I have a feeling that when I hit it, it's gonna get pretty lucky. So
Yeah, that's true.
that's also something I have to factor in, right? You got to factor it in.
Amazing. All right. What are you doing now that you have effectively retired from poker? Now is maybe a little bit tricky. So, say 5 months ago or 5 months in the future, what is sort of your game plan?
Yeah.
What do you do every day since you're not focusing on poker anymore?
So for a little bit, I can't get too into this, but basically, I was considering, or I was working rather with someone on potentially doing a TV show that would be based more about finance from more of a less of like this stock is so hot, ding 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 ding, but talk more about what's happening in the world and try and do some more in-depth stuff on how not to get owned or be a noob in situations and kind of what's happening and add in some comedy. But ultimately, you know, I didn't end up going through, so I can kind of put that to the side now and think about what I want to do. I also don't think it's going to be YouTube. YouTube's fun in small doses. I'm sure I'd love to once in a while get in there and hammer some scammers. That's just the best. Those are some of my favorite moments in YouTube. But it's not going to be grinding YouTube. It's not going to be playing poker. I really don't enjoy playing poker. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think my game plan is once I finish this, I'll do some coaching based around it at upswing. And then after that, I'm gonna figure things out. I'm gonna focus on health for a bit. I've been doing some dieting and getting back on the health train this year, which has been good. Kind of let that fall to the side while I've been focusing on poker and stuff. It's really hard to be at a calorie deficit while you're trying to learn and study a lot because you're just so burnt out all the time. But I'm doing a pretty good job lately, so I feel good about that. But I think probably focus on health and start to just maybe look at some other investing or business stuff, and yeah, just kind of go down those avenues and be pretty flexible. I'm in a fortunate position to where I don't really have to work, and obviously I can kind of pursue my passions. And I really do enjoy playing Counter-Strike. I'm going to play in this season, even though I'm not really able to practice. But maybe I'll take that more seriously again. I'm unsure. But yeah, just find hobbies I feel passionate about, and then focus on business and investing. That'd be kind of my strat from here.
Seems good. All right. Is there anything that you realized? Let me start over. Say that like a human. Is there anything you realized that you missed about poker during or when you started playing this match?
Making money has been nice. Making money directly, not making money in theory or long run or investing, but just showing up, winning money. That's been good. Between the challenge and what I played outside, I've won over $1 million, maybe one whatever. It's been nice. It's been nice to do something, feel good about doing it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. To do something where you feel good. To do something where you know you're really good at it is the sentence I'm looking for. And then that has it's rewarding in its own way, right? To just be one of the best at something, even if I'm not the best heads-up player anymore. I'm certainly not, but I am one of the best players, and just to get to be at that level in something that you do, there's pride in that, and that I've enjoyed. I'd say that's been the best attribute. But yeah, I'm ready for retirement.
Yeah, that makes sense. There really is nothing like winning in poker, like how direct, like even having a job and getting paid a paycheck, it doesn't feel the same as stacking some guy, you know? It just feels so goddamn good.
But one of the problems is now when I play, it's only work. When I play, I'm just working. I'm here to take the money and leave. And so when I have big losing sessions, it's extra shitty because I did a thing I didn't want to do all day that I dislike and lost 100K. That's a shitty feeling, you know?
Of
This
course,
is
yeah.
your reward, Doug, for those hours you put in, you know, really just getting in there for the grind. But it's I can't complain.
Yeah, for sure. How could you? All right, regarding your recent tweet, why do you want to leave Nevada down the line?
Well, there's several different reasons. The first is at some point I'll probably start a family. I don't think Vegas would be good for that.
Not great schools.
Not great schools, not great atmosphere. And then the other thing is I don't plan on gambling or enjoy gambling, and I'm not up in the middle of the night anymore, so I need 24-hour stuff. I don't really see a reason to be here other than I do have some friends here. But I don't have a ton of friends here, and then I have plenty of friends in other cities as well, so I think it's time. I think it's
Nice.
time to go be a I'm definitely never gonna be a regular human, but you know, closer.
Trending that way. It's tough to be as regular of a human as you can be when you're living in Vegas. It's just
Exactly.
it doesn't gel quite like it would elsewhere. All right, let's quickly check the chat, see if you guys have any questions that you've recently asked. People are bringing up an upswing poker, well, I guess just upswing gaming team coming. That already exists, guys. I don't know if you know. There's already a
We're one of the top 100 teams in America in Counter-Strike. Probably right about 100th.
yeah, the low end of that for sure. Let's see what else we got. Do you think it's risky to say you don't like poker anymore with regards to upswing? Yeah, you want to throw an
No.
answer after that one? Yeah, I don't
Sure.
think so either.
You know, here's the thing. I just try to be honest and direct, and I don't try and just make every dollar I can and posture and try and basically protect things to make more money or whatever. I'm just gonna say how I feel, and obviously Upswing is my company and we teach poker, but there is a difference between my poker coaching company teaching people how to play poker well and me personally enjoying poker. They're not the same thing. If you want to learn how to play poker, you should get in the lab. if you want to learn how to play No Limit Hold'em. It's the best place to learn No Limit Hold'em. But that doesn't mean that I love poker, you know? You can do these two things separately. So I've just always tried to have a really honest relationship with my fans and the people that follow me and what I do. And so even if it loses me some money, it's truthful, and I don't want people to. I don't want to lead anyone on. You know, I want to say how I feel.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely been your approach from the beginning. I think most people appreciate the genuineness. I'll wrap it up on this question. We've asked you this before, but this guy really wants to hear it. I know a lot of people are interested in this topic. So can you say whatever you're willing to say regarding side bets on this challenge? I mean, I'm doubtful you're willing to disclose how much you have at risk to win how much, but if just speak to the side bets that you have on the challenge, if you don't mind.
There are side bets on the challenge.
Boom. There you go. See, that's all you get, guys. That's why I didn't ask. That's why I wasn't going to ask, but you asked 40 times in the chat.
And frankly, I'm very lucky there are. What's the chance of that, Mike? What were the chance of side bets on this challenge? So lucky.
Pretty lucky. Just to give you a little bit more of a satisfying answer, those of you who want to know an answer to that challenge or to that question, the one of the publicized side bets that Doug has is versus Phil Hellmuth. It's Phil Hellmuth's $25,000 to win Doug's $100,000. That was on Twitter, so it's public information, so I'm comfortable disclosing it. But yeah, if Doug were to disclose how much he has in side bets, that would allow Daniel to, in theory, play better down the stretch when and if it's a little closer and there's only a few thousand hands to play. So simply put,
that Mike, and also it's none of your fucking business, chat. So you can go with the Mike answer if you'd like, but really I'm just telling you, I'm not going to fucking tell you. Very polite though, Mike. Very kind of you. You're too kind to these animals.
Well,
you're too kind.
Well, we have a bit of a good cop, bad cop routine going. We've kind of had that for several years, actually, where I treat people somewhat decently, and then you tell them the truth. So that's sort of how we approach it.
Nice.
Reasonable.
Nice.
All right, well, I think it's time to put a cap on this very fiery interview today. Good stuff. If you were gonna watch one session of the Doug vs. Daniel challenge, I would say today is the session to watch. Probably watching both interviews.
Can I just say how lucky they got to watch this session? They did. In fact, it's unbelievable how lucky they got. If this was one of the only ones you watched, so lucky.
No kidding.
You didn't even realize you in the chat were running hot, but you actually were.
Yeah, you guys were lucky to be here. No doubt about that. All right, well, one quick plug before we go. The new PLO Launchpad course is coming out on Upswing in, I believe, 1 week from today, on the 25th, next Monday. It's going to be a beginner-friendly pot limit Omaha course. If you've ever wanted to break into that complex 4-card game, but you've kind of been too intimidated by it, or maybe you've just dabbled in it, this is the course for you. It's a 5+ hour lifetime access course that will teach you how to become a winner at Pot Limit Omaha fast. That's coming to Upswing next week on Monday. It's going to come for $99. If you join during launch week, you're going to get the PLO Matrix revolutionary Pot Limit Omaha preflop tool. You're going to get that for $1 for a month. So very good deal. Do not miss out on that. We're actually going to host the coach of that course after this challenge. So stick around on YouTube, and we're going to go ahead and raid him, say what's up to Cookies for us. And yeah, that's about it for us today, guys. The next session is going to be on Wednesday, 2 days from today. Same time, same place, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 22:30 GMT. Going to be here on twitch.tv/upswingpoker or youtube.com/DougPolkPoker. Thank you very much to Ryan Poker with Risk for joining us today. Check him out on Twitch and YouTube. Some great cash game content for free. And thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you on Wednesday.
Peace.